Chapter 26. What do we do now? Christine looked at Roca somewhat bewilderedly. Roca frowned, not expecting the plan to fail unexpectedly. It won't be easy to trick Freddy now. Suddenly he seemed to think of something. Hurry, let's go back first. I'm afraid Freddy has already attacked them. Hearing this, Nancy immediately realized that perhaps Freddy's purpose from the beginning was to lure the others away and then attack the ones who stayed behind. It's not impossible. So the three of them hurried back. As expected. When the three of them arrived at the original ward, all I could hear were bursts of terrified screams coming from the ward, and it was obvious that something terrible was happening inside. I can't open it. Nancy tried to turn the doorknob, but found that it wouldn't open. I'll do it. As soon as Roca finished speaking, he kicked him. Boom. The door was violently kicked open. The temperature in the ward was at least 70 or 80 degrees. If it continued like this, several people would probably be burned to death. Come out quickly. Nancy yelled into the ward. At this time, several panicked people in the ward also reacted and quickly rushed out of the ward. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief only after the last patient ran out. Nancy looked around and saw that no one was injured. It looked like a false alarm. However, the children who experienced all this are still in panic. Even Gordon, the male doctor, was still a little frightened. He had never really believed in Freddy before, until he experienced all this. He realized how terrifying Freddy was. What do we do now? After comforting the children, Nancy looked at Roca. Now the bait plan has failed and the children have been attacked. What should we do next to catch Freddy? Roca frowned. Freddy was too cunning. After knowing that he couldn't deal with him, he set his sights on other people. This is really hard to guard against. And Freddy probably won't be fooled a second time. Go out first. After thinking about it, Roca decided to go out and think about it later. Naturally, no one had any objection. Then Christine activated her ability. The next second, everyone returned to their original ward. Nancy drew aside the curtains. The dazzling sunlight shone in. But everyone seemed to be in another world, their thoughts still lingering on the horrifying scene just now. Even my whole body felt a little cold. What should we do now? If the plan fails, can we just wait to die? Dr. Gordon's mood was a little unstable, and it seemed that he had not yet recovered from the fear he had just experienced. Roca frowned and thought, completely ignoring his meaning. Well, at least we know that Freddy is not unbeatable. Now everyone is tired, let's go take a rest. Nancy stepped forward to comfort everyone, and then asked everyone to go and rest. But how could the children, troubled by nightmares, fall asleep after what they had just experienced in their dreams? There is actually another way. Roca suddenly spoke. What is it? Nancy asked eagerly, her eyes lighting up. We have to find Freddy's remains, purify them with holy water and destroy them. Roca remembered that Freddy's soul was living in the remains, and the problem could be solved by finding the remains and purifying them. Of course, we can just lure Freddy over here. In other words, as long as Freddy's remains are found, he can be killed completely. But does anyone know where Freddy's remains are? Dr. Gordon asked with a frown. Nancy took a deep breath and said, I think I know. It was the parents of the children present who burned Freddy to death, and Nancy's father was someone who knew about it at the time. As long as we look for him, we will definitely know where Freddy's remains are hidden. I'll go with you. If Freddy knew about this plan, he would definitely come to stop us. Dr. Gordon originally wanted to say something, but after hearing what Roca said, he immediately stopped talking. After all, he had no way to deal with Freddy. No one had any objection. After a moment, Roca and Nancy went to a bar in the town. Dad. Nancy soon found her father, the sheriff, who was drinking. It turns out to be my precious daughter. My sweetheart has come to see her father. Nancy's father was also very happy to see her. Haven't seen you for a long time. Nancy felt a little embarrassed. After all, she went to work in a mental hospital right after she came back this time and had not had time to visit her father. Yes. Nancy's father nodded with emotion, then looked at the man next to his daughter. This is your boyfriend? Nancy's father said, raising an eyebrow. No, Dad, you misunderstood. Nancy explained a little sheepishly. Really? That's a pity. Nancy's father had a very good first impression of Roca. The boy looked tall, strong, handsome, and clean, and should be a perfect candidate for son-in-law. "Hello uncle, my name is Roca." "Hello, please take a seat. You must be here to talk to me about something, right?" When Nancy's father saw the situation of the two people, he naturally guessed that there must be something important. "It's Freddy." When Nancy said the name, Nancy's father's body visibly stiffened. "I thought I had forgotten it. I need your help, Dad. Freddy's back," Nancy said very seriously. Nancy's father was silent for a moment, then he said seriously, "Freddy is dead, he can't be alive." Chapter 27. No. Nancy became a little excited. "Freddy's back, he's hurt a lot of kids, and now we have to know where his remains are hidden." Nancy's father looked at her and then shook his head. "I have lost too much from this matter, so I won't tell you." Seeing her father's firm attitude, Nancy walked away angrily. "Nancy." Roca followed. "I'm fine, give me some time, I will convince Dad," Nancy said with a hint of sadness. "It's okay, take your time," Roca comforted softly. In fact, if he hadn't forgotten where Freddy's remains were buried, he wouldn't have had to look for Nancy's father. But now only Nancy's father knows where Freddy's remains are hidden. However, it was at this moment Dr. Gordon from the mental hospital called. "What?" Christine fell into a dream. After hearing the words on the other end of the phone, Nancy's face suddenly changed. "It seems that Freddy already knows our plan, so he wants to use Christine to contain us." Roca guessed Freddy's plan in an instant. "We have to hurry back now." Nancy looked a little anxious. "Okay, but let's take your father with us." Roca took out a gun and walked up to Nancy's father as if he was going to kidnap Nancy. Now Nancy's father had no choice but to leave with them. A moment later the three returned to the mental hospital. "I found holy water and a cross at the church." Dr. Gordon did not do nothing. Following Roca's instructions, he had already found holy water and a cross from the town church. These will be needed later to purify Freddy's remains. "How's Christine?" Nancy asked anxiously. "I fell into a dream 10 minutes ago. I'm afraid it's not good," Dr. Gordon said with a frown. "Get ready to enter the dreamland now." Roca entered Christine's ward without saying a word. "I'll go with you." Nancy followed without hesitation. "And me?" Gordon was not to be outdone. "Our goal is to rescue Christine, who is trapped in the dream, so we don't need too many people. Dr. Gordon, please stay." Nancy turned to Dr. Gordon and said something, obviously determined to go in together. Seeing this, Roca had no choice but to agree. "How about adding me?" Nancy's father saw that they didn't look like they were acting, so he decided to follow them to see what was going on. "Can?" Roca naturally didn't mind letting him broaden his horizons. Soon Nancy had the hypnotic pendulum ready. Then the three of them entered the dream together. "Is this a dream?" Nancy's father looked around and found that nothing had changed, and he felt that he had been cheated. But neither of them paid any attention to him. "Christine isn't here." Nancy looked at the empty bed and suddenly became anxious. "Let's go look outside." Roca didn't waste any words and immediately opened the door and walked out. "The most important thing now is to find Christine first." Nancy followed closely behind. Seeing this, Nancy's father had no choice but to follow. The three of them continued searching in this deserted mental hospital. It was at this time Roca's ears moved slightly as if he heard some sound, and then he followed the sound to an abandoned and closed building in the mental hospital. "Kick the door open." Then Christine's screaming voice came. "Down there." Nancy looked inside the building anxiously. "I saw that there was a boiler room downstairs. There was a red light flashing inside the boiler room, and it looked very scary, like hell." Go down." Roca walked down the stairs without hesitation and quickly found Christine's location. Unexpectedly, at this moment she was actually hanging in the air with an iron chain. And below is a scorching fire. Freddy stood at the mechanical joystick. As long as he pulled down the joystick, Christine, who was hanging in the air, would fall into the fire and burn into charcoal. He. Freddy pointed at Roca with an evil smile and said, "Want to save her? All you have to do is, jump down." Several fights and dreams made him very angry. The man in front of him could actually defeat him in a dream. This was something he could never forgive. That's why they designed to threaten the other party. As long as the other party is willing to jump into the fire, he will be burned to death. No. Seeing Freddy using such a sinister method, Nancy's first reaction was to stop Roca. Because she knew very well how treacherous and cunning Freddy was, and he would not let them go even if they jumped. Roca was not stupid enough to believe Freddy's lies. Freddy, do you think I will believe you? Then I shall have no choice but to burn her to death. Freddy said as he pulled down the lever. Yet Christine screamed and was about to fall into the burning fire. Seeing this, Roca squatted slightly, then made a sprint jump and caught Christine in mid-air, then jumped over a distance of more than 10 meters and landed on the other side. What? Even Freddy was shocked. Didn't expect that such a little trick could stump me. Roca sneered disdainfully. The problem was that Freddy underestimated him. It was only a distance of more than 10 meters, and he could rush over with just a single jump. Saving Christine was completely easy. Pa pa pa. Very good. Nancy clapped excitedly when she saw this. Chapter 28. As for Nancy's father, he had been in a daze from the beginning till now. He didn't expect to actually see Freddy here. And what was going on with Roca? How can he jump so far? Is this still a human being? Freddy, your end is here. As soon as Roca finished speaking, he rushed out. Seeing this, Freddy swung his sharp claws and grabbed him fiercely. However, such an attack seemed too weak to Roca. He reached out and grabbed Freddy's iron claw, then twisted it hard. The next second, Freddy's arm was twisted into a knot. Christine! Roca shouted. Christine reacted immediately, and now all she had to do was use her ability to bring Freddy back to reality. So she hurried towards where the two of them were. Freddy wasn't quite sure what she was going to do, but he felt vaguely threatened. The next second, Fred's body turned into a slippery loach and burrowed into the ground and disappeared. Damn it! Roca stomped his foot on the ground in annoyance, but unfortunately Freddy had already escaped. He escaped. Christine was a little confused when she saw Freddy was gone. Well, this guy is really too slippery. Roca didn't look very happy. In this dream, if Freddy wanted to escape, no one could stop him. What should I do now? At this time Nancy also ran over. Roca sighed helplessly, now I just hope that purifying Freddy's remains can destroy him. After all, Freddy is living on the remains, so destroying his remains should be able to destroy his body. You can see it from the movie. Go out first. Christine nodded, then activated her ability. The next second, the four of them woke up in the ward. How is it going? Dr. Gordon asked hurriedly. Nancy shook her head and said nothing. Now we can only find Freddy's remains and try to purify them with holy water. Roca said this and looked at Nancy's father. At this time, Nancy's father was no longer as stubborn as before. After seeing Freddy with his own eyes, he also knew that if he didn't kill Freddy, they would be dead. Come with me, I know where Freddy's remains are. Nancy's father honestly told the place where Freddy's remains were buried. The abandoned Penny Brothers garage. This is where Freddy's remains are buried. It was already evening when Roca and others arrived here. Freddy's remains are in there. Nancy's father opened the door to the abandoned garage and turned to everyone. Then go in quickly. Dr. Gordon can't wait to purify Freddy. However, it was at this moment. Etc. Roca keenly heard some strange noises in the abandoned car factory. The next second, a machete flew towards Nancy. Yeah, Nancy screamed in horror. However, the next second the machete was grabbed by a hand. Roca said nothing, his eyes fixed on the dark abandoned garage. The machete in his hand gave him a familiar feeling. This is definitely not Freddy's weapon. Are you okay? Nancy, who had just recovered from the shock, saw his hand holding the machete and couldn't help feeling a little worried, but at the same time, she felt endless gratitude in her heart. If Roca hadn't intervened, she would have died several times. Fine. Roca shook his head. This kind of machete could not penetrate the defense at all, even if you grabbed the blade. Snap. It was at this time. A heavy sound of footsteps was heard in the abandoned factory. Then a guy wearing a hockey mask and holding a machete came out. Jason. Roca narrowed his eyes. Was he sure he saw Jason here? Wasn't this guy killed by him not long ago? How could it be here? But there was no way he would mistake this familiar image. What is going on? Are they trapped in a dream? Soon he shook his head and was able to use the system space, which meant he was not in a dream. The only real thought is that Jason was awakened from hell by Freddy. Roca remembered that there was such a setting in the movie Freddy vs. Jason. In order to make people remember him again, Freddy chose to awaken Jason's sleeping soul in hell. But in the end, Jason couldn't control himself and fought with him. I didn't expect such a thing to happen at this time. Could it be that Freddy chose to wake up Jason because he was afraid of me, and tried to make Jason deal with me? Roca's expression was somewhat ridiculous. Doesn't this guy know that he just killed Jason? Quick, kill them. At this time, a skeleton appeared behind Jason. As expected, this skeleton is Freddy's remains. What should I do? Is this guy Freddy in disguise? Christine asked with some fear. Roca shook his head. No, this guy is Jason, the undead killer next door. I don't care who he is. After Nancy's father finished speaking, he raised his pistol and pulled the trigger. Pa pa pa. Several bullets hit Jason accurately. But it didn't have any effect. This guy seems to have gotten stronger. Roca raised his eyebrows. You know, every time Jason is resurrected, he becomes stronger, just like a scion. But he didn't take this level seriously. Jason, I don't know if you still remember this. Roca said as he raised the Saiga 12K shotgun. Chapter 29. Jason was stunned for a moment when he saw the gun in his hand, and then rushed over angrily. It was obvious that he still remembered that he died from this gun last time. And isn't the person in front of him the one who killed him? Bump. Roca raised his hand and fired a shot without hesitation. However, this shot only made Jason pause. This guy has indeed become a lot stronger. Boom boom boom. Roca fired one shot after another, forcing Jason to retreat again and again. But such attacks obviously no longer had much effect on him. This monster. Nancy, Christine, and others behind him were frightened by this monster. They didn't expect that even the shotgun was useless. What to do now? Roca smiled and put away the shotgun. The next second, a black tube appeared in his hand, an RPG rocket launcher. Bye-bye. Whoosh boom. A rocket hit Jason accurately, followed by a violent explosion. The flames and gusts of air that shot up into the sky forced everyone to retreat. Roca turned around and used his body to protect Nancy and Christine behind him. Wait until the explosion is over. The spot was charred black and a hole was blown out of the ground. As for Jason's body, it was lying in the pit in tatters. Not dead yet. Roca raised an eyebrow. But it was obvious that he was overthinking it. As long as it was a carbon-based creature, it would be mortal in front of this rocket launcher. Where on earth did you come from, RPG? Dr. Gordon looked at Roca in amazement. I think it's better for you not to know. Roca narrowed his eyes and smiled. Dr. Gordon immediately shut up when he saw this. Nancy and others, who were originally very curious, chose to put this question behind them. Let's go. All we have to do next is purify Freddy's remains. Roca said this and strode towards the abandoned car factory. Seeing this, everyone followed. Soon, in a place full of waste in an abandoned garage, Freddy's skeletal remains were waiting. It's not that easy to purify me. As Freddy finished his words, the piles of car scraps around him began to tremble. It seemed as if it would collapse in the next second. However, Roca remained calm. Freddy, stop bluffing. With your ability, you can't affect reality without going through a dream, right? Then give it a try. Freddy was still very stubborn. Seeing this, Roca didn't intend to waste time talking to him and immediately strode over. Seeing this, Freddy also controlled the skeleton to rush over. But how much power can a skeleton exert? Maybe it could be used against ordinary people, but it was impossible to deal with him. Freddy, is this all you can do? Roca didn't dodge and let Freddy's skeleton's fist hit his chest. This force is just enough to tickle him. You. Freddy became even angrier, but there was nothing he could do. Dr. Gordon. Roca ignored the helpless and furious Freddy and turned around to call Dr. Gordon. Here I come. Dr. Gordon nodded, then brought over the holy water and the cross. After Roca took it, he grabbed Fred's skull neck and poured the holy water over his head. A shrill scream penetrated into the soul. Chilling. Then the screams became smaller and smaller until they disappeared. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Rewards are being distributed. Congratulations to the host for obtaining thermal vision. The sudden system prompt in his mind made Roca stunned for a moment, and then his eyes widened. It's thermal vision. Those who know Superman know that it is a powerful ability that can use the body's biological energy to convert it into high-temperature energy and then shoot it out from the eyes. If Superman uses it, the temperature of its high-temperature rays can reach that of the core of the sun, and can melt everything. This shows the abnormality of this ability. However, if Roca were to use it, its power would definitely not be that abnormal. But it is powerful enough. This also makes up for some of his attack methods. Although he likes guns very much and believes that guns are the romance of men, he also bought a lot of heavy firearms. But there will always be ghosts that guns cannot deal with. Thermal vision solves this problem. Even the most powerful ghosts cannot ignore the power of heat vision. Roca, are you okay? Seeing that he didn't move, Nancy couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. It's okay, don't worry. Roca showed a bright smile on his face. Everyone can rest assured, Freddy has been eliminated. After hearing this, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. Great, we finally got rid of that guy. Now we should be able to get some sleep, right? Of course, the nightmare is over and soon everyone will be able to return to normal life. That's great. My dream is to get out of here and see what's happening outside. Then go and see. Seeing the children cheering, Nancy also smiled sincerely. Thanks. Maybe you should change your way of saying thank you. Roca looked at her with an ambiguous tone. Nancy immediately lowered her head in embarrassment, not knowing how to respond. Okay, we should go back. Nancy's father coughed twice when he saw this. Roca shrugged and sent everyone back. But when I returned to the hotel, there was still one person left by my side. What? You're not going home tonight? Roca looked at Nancy in the passenger seat with a smile. You ask even though you already know the answer. Nancy couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. Roca chuckled, parked the car, and then pulled her into the hotel. Chapter 30. The next day. Roca woke up yawning, and subconsciously touched his side, only to find that Nancy had already gotten up. I'm getting dressed in the sunshine. The fair skin was quite eye-catching in the sun, and the beautiful figure also made him eager to try. Ahem, don't rush to put on your clothes. Nancy couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. You're so outstanding, you should already have a girlfriend, right? Well. Roca was a little speechless. Nancy was a little disappointed when she saw him like this. She didn't mind being Roca's girlfriend. But she felt sad when she thought that such an outstanding boy would definitely have a girlfriend. As expected. Roca chuckled and pulled Nancy, who was wearing panties, into his arms. In fact, I do have a girlfriend, and 2 girlfriends at that. If you don't mind, you can also be my girlfriend. What? Nancy's eyes widened. She originally thought it was normal for him to have a girlfriend, but she didn't expect that he actually had 2 girlfriends. But to be honest, it is not uncommon in America to have 2 relationships at the same time. I don't want it. Really? I remember someone was so beautiful last night that she said she would make me happy for the rest of my life. Nancy struggled a little in embarrassment when she heard his explicit words. But it was obvious that her struggle was in vain. If you're worried about them, you're wrong. They all know each other. In fact, Maria knew Tina, but Roca had not told Tina about Maria. But it's not a big deal. Real. Nancy was a little surprised after hearing this. She originally thought that the man was playing with 2 women at the same time without the other party's knowledge. I didn't expect it to be like this. Come on, don't hesitate. Seeing her hesitation, Roca immediately bit her cherry lips. It has to be conquered ruthlessly. You can't run away once you're in his bed. It was not until noon that the 2 arrived at the mental hospital. Thank you, Roca. Thank you so much. You know what? I finally got a good night's sleep yesterday. Yes, no more nightmares. Dr. Gordon said that given this situation, we can be discharged from the hospital immediately. The children, including Christine, who had been troubled by Freddy, were very excited and happy to see them. And chattered non-stop. After getting rid of Freddy, they won't have nightmares anymore, which is more important than anything else. Nancy also smiled happily when she saw this. I feel relieved to see you recover. Although it took a lot of effort to deal with Freddy, the results were quite good, so Roca was in a very good mood. Roca, are you leaving? Christine realized that he was going to leave and felt reluctant to let him go. In fact, I'm still a student. Roca shrugged. It's not hard to guess what the little girl is thinking, but he's not in a hurry. Maria and Tina were very worried after being away for so many days. It's time to go back. Nancy was also very reluctant to leave, and she immediately suggested, why don't we all get together to celebrate? Okay. I agree. Very good. It was obvious that everyone agreed with this proposal. All right. Roca didn't refuse, and it was no problem for him to stay for a day or two. Thanks to the efforts of Nancy and Gordon, Director Elizabeth finally agreed to let the patients leave the mental hospital. So they went to the hotel to celebrate. The celebration didn't end until the evening. Except for Roca, everyone was drunk. For example, Nancy and Christine, who are beside him. There was no other way, so he had to send the two back to their room. The next day, with Nancy, Christine, and others seeing him off, Roca drove away from Elm Street. Be careful on the road, and I will be transferred to New York Hospital. Nancy waved goodbye to him with reluctance on her face. I'll be going to school in New York, too. Christine has decided to go to school in New York. Then we can meet often again. Then I'll wait for you in New York. Roca smiled and waved, then stepped on the accelerator without hesitation and drove away. Back to New York. Okay, baby, I'll talk to you about how to deal with Freddy this weekend. I'm almost home now. Don't worry, I promise I won't let you down. Baby is dead. After hanging up the phone with Tina, Roca parked the car and returned to his rental house. Roca. Maria, wearing only a white t-shirt and shorts, rushed over excitedly. Hey baby, you missed me. Roca smiled and took the girl's delicate body, his hands already starting to get restless. Of course I do, hurry up. Unexpectedly, Maria was even more anxious than him and couldn't wait to pull at his clothes. Roca was a little helpless. Now he could only feed this little greedy cat first. Until Maria fell asleep. Roca picked up his notebook and looked at the website of his exorcist agency. I found that there are already many comments below. This should be what Dr. Loomis commented on. A comment full of praise for him caught his attention. Judging from the time, it should be Dr. Loomis who made the comment. The review said that Roca's service was very good, he easily solved the murderer, and the fee was not expensive. However, there are several sarcastic replies below, all saying that this comment was a shill. This is also normal. It's a good thing to get a reply, which proves that his exorcist agency has been seen by more people. At the same time, a private message in the background attracted his attention. Have you ever dealt with a murderer? The comment's ID is called Heather. Chapter 31. He probably wants to commission something, but it's also possible that he's just interested in murderers. Roca immediately replied, of course, I have dealt with more than one murderer. Oh my god, can you tell me about it? Are you interested in these things? Very interested. It's okay if you don't want to talk about it. To be honest, it is a bit strange to talk about something like a murderer with a stranger. However, although Roca had dealt with Maria, he was still full of energy and didn't mind chatting with her when he had nothing to do. From the undead killer Jason of Crystal Lake to the dream demon Freddy. A female netizen named Heather was stunned by his experience. What are you doing? It was not until 2 hours later when Maria woke up that Roca ended their conversation. Nothing, just someone inquired about the exorcism agency website. Are you hungry? Do you want me to make you something to eat? Roca stroked her fair and smooth skin and smiled. Kindness. Maria nodded obediently after hearing this. She was indeed a little hungry. Hearing this, Roca kissed her on the forehead and then went to prepare dinner. In the next few days, Roca and Maria went to and from school together, and every day was very fulfilling and happy. On weekends, I go shopping with Tina. I would get calls from Nancy and Christine from time to time. At the same time, Roca was having a heated chat with female netizen Heather. One day, Heather told Roca that she suddenly received an inheritance from her grandmother and needed her to go to a small town in Texas to inherit it. And she has asked her parents and found out that she was adopted. He even had an argument with his adoptive parents over this. So Heather decided to go to Texas to visit her grandmother and find out about her own life experience. It's not very safe to go there alone. Roca could only remind them again and again. Thanks, I know, but I have to go and see. Heather had to find out about her own background, so she was very determined. Besides, she was not going alone. After several friends learned that she was going to Texas, they expressed their desire to go with her. Roca could do nothing to help. However, it was at this moment. Ding! The system has updated the task Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D, please kill the murderer Leatherface. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. Roca was a little surprised. He didn't expect that the system task would be triggered suddenly. He has dealt with Jason, Miles, and Freddy, one of the 4 greatest killers in Western film history, and Leatherface is the last one. As for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D, it is also his favorite one. Because the heroine in this step is Daddario. Both her figure and appearance are top-notch. She is no worse than Maria, and even has a better figure. And this Daddario is unsurprisingly Heather. This is really a coincidence. When are you going to trigger it? Why don't I go with you? I heard there is a murderer family in Texas, and we can meet them. Hey! On the other hand, Heather was a little surprised to see this reply. She didn't expect Roca to actually offer to go with her. In fact, she was very interested in Roca, a man who had fought against many murderers, otherwise they would not have become netizens. Now, when she suddenly heard that the other party wanted to meet her, she was really curious. I wonder what Roca looks like? Although he often brags about being handsome. Okay, but we're leaving tomorrow. It's still in time. Give me a meeting address. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay then, we'll wait for you at XXX tomorrow. See you there. After the chat, Roca had a bright smile on his face. Based on their conversations over the past few days, he knew that Heather didn't have a boyfriend yet. There is a little black guy who has been pursuing her. But since he is here, that little black guy will naturally roll as far away as possible. The next day. Early in the morning, Roca set off in his newly purchased Porsche. Tina and Maria didn't come because they had to go to class. After several hours of driving, Roca finally arrived at the meeting place Heather mentioned and stopped in front of a Ford. Hey, it's a Porsche 986. This is the latest model of Porsche, so cool. After seeing the handsome Porsche 986, a black man and another man came over with shining eyes and touched the car body. As for the 2 girls on the side, they were more interested in the people in the car. Hi, at this time, the car window rolled down and a handsome black-haired man wearing sunglasses waved to them. Is this someone you know, Jeannie? Xiao He asked doubtfully. No. The girl who was called Jeannie also shook her head in confusion. Hey, Kenny, you have a friend like this, why don't you talk to him? Xiao He cursed and laughed and punched the boy named Kenny. I don't know him either. Kenny was also a little confused, because he didn't know such a rich young man. Heather. Finally, the 3 of them turned their gaze to the girl with black hair, blue eyes, and a delicate and beautiful face. Me? I don't know him either. Heather shook her head. She didn't remember knowing such a rich and handsome man. Otherwise she would have taken him down long ago. Hearing this, the other 3 were a little confused. Since they didn't know him, what was this handsome guy doing here? Is he just here to chat up? Roca was a little amused when he saw this. He immediately opened the door and got out of the car. He came to Heather and said, "You didn't forget it, did you?" Heather was stunned. The other 3 people looked like they didn't know him. Chapter 32. Wait, you're Roca. Heather realized at this time that the purpose of their being here was to wait for Roca. She didn't expect that even though the other party was there, she didn't recognize him. Heather, you are beautiful. Roca took out a bouquet of roses and handed it over. The 4 of them were stunned by this magical scene. Thanks. Heather was very happy with the result. Kenny nudged Blackie next to him and winked at him. Hey, you're out of luck now. Xiao He was a little unhappy so he didn't respond. Everyone knew that he was pursuing Heather, but no one expected that Heather would meet such a handsome, rich guy outside. But he won't give up. Sorry, my car only seats 2. After pulling Heather into the car, Roca apologized to Xiao He and the other 2, then stepped on the accelerator and drove away. So fast, Heather exclaimed excitedly, and then immersed herself in the speed and passion of the Porsche. At this moment, she almost forgot all the unpleasantness between her and her adoptive parents. Until a few hours later. They have arrived in a small village called Nwart, Texas. Marvelous. Heather was still a little excited after getting off the car. Take a quick look at the exact location in the letter your grandmother sent you. Roca reminded with a smile. Yes. Heather nodded and took out the letter. According to what the letter said, we should be not far from the property my grandmother left me. Should we wait for them? Roca was referring to the 3 Xiahe people who were left far behind. Wait a minute, they don't know the way, it would be bad if they get lost. Heather thought about it and decided it would be better to wait a while. But this wait lasted 2 hours. It was just that they were speeding too fast just now. Kenny couldn't catch up with them in his old Ford. Fortunately, the 2 of them stayed in the car, eating, listening to music and chatting, so they didn't seem bored. You are finally here. It wasn't until she saw the Ford behind her that Heather finally couldn't help but complain. Kenny and his friends were also a little depressed, as they were already chasing at the fastest speed. Unexpectedly, not only did I fail to catch up with him, also got complained about. Heather, if you don't want to wait, why don't we switch? Kenny's girlfriend, the passionate and unrestrained Kenny, spoke with a smile, and even threw a few coquettish glances at Roca in front of her boyfriend. Of course not. Heather refused without a second thought. Only an idiot would want to trade with her. All right. Seeing this, Jeannie could only smile helplessly. Okay, let's continue on our way. Roca interrupted the chat of several people. Although Jeannie is also a standard blonde beauty with big wavy hair and a very eye-catching figure, she is not his type. The group set out again. However, because we waited for Jeannie and the others for too long, it soon became dark. Just then, they came across a school bus parked in the middle of a deserted road. Hey, what happened to you guys? Heather leaned out the window and shouted toward the bus. What can be seen is that there are many students in the school bus. It seems that they are preparing to go back after participating in a competition in a certain school. Do you need our help pushing the cart? Roca asked with a smile as he looked at the bald old black man who got out of the car. In fact, there were so many students on the bus that they didn't even need to push it. The bald old black man shook his head and said, No, the tire at the back is blown. Please help us notify the traffic police. Thank you. Really? We're planning to camp nearby. Since they were not familiar with the area, Heather and her friends did plan to camp. Go in this direction and you'll reach the town in 3 hours. The bald old black man pointed in the direction. Oh, that's great. If possible, no one wants to sleep in the wilderness. After passing the school bus, Roca and his 2 cars continued to move forward. However, he didn't run for long. Kenny's tire at the back suddenly burst for no apparent reason. Shit, Kenny cursed and got out of the car to check. You should have a spare tire you can change to, right? Roca and Heather also backed up at this time. Certainly. Kenny still had a spare tire in his car. He bent down to check the rear wheel and found something stuck in the tire. He reached in and tried to pull it out. Kenny suddenly pulled his hand back as if he had been electrocuted, only to find that his hand had been cut by some sharp blade. Is there something in there? Xiao He shone the flashlight over there, then carefully reached out and pulled the thing out. Only then did everyone see clearly that it was actually a cross mark. The area around the cross mark seems to be made of elephant teeth and is very sharp. There is also a human tooth embedded in the middle joint. What on earth is this? Xiao He looked at it and was a little confused. Throw it away quickly, this thing is too sharp, be careful of tetanus. Kenny, who had suffered a loss, became angry when he saw the cross mark. Wait, Roca suddenly called out to Xiao He, who was about to throw away the cross mark, and then took the cross mark from his hand and looked at it. This is indeed made of some kind of bone. It doesn't look like animal bone, but more like human bone. Human bones. Heather looked at the cross mark with some doubt. Such a big bone must be at least a forearm bone or a leg bone. That's too scary. They actually used human bones to make the cross symbol. Chapter 33. Ding. The system has updated the task Horrifying Cannibals 2, please host to deal with the cannibal IC. Roca, who was originally a little confused, suddenly understood that he had encountered an ogre with bat wings. The reason why their tires burst must have been caused by this ogre. The cross mark is the best proof. And the people in the school bus before were probably the cannibal's prey. But now they seem to have been targeted by the ogre. What? Heather was a little confused when she heard his words. Roca looked up and smiled, I mean, we have been targeted by the ogres. This cross mark was made by the ogres. Hearing this, several people looked at each other. I never expected that he would say such a thing. This seemed too outrageous to them. I'm telling you, have you read too many stories? What ogre? It's just that the tire got punctured by this thing. Xiao He snatched the crossmark from his hand with a look of disdain and threw it away. Ryan. Heather frowned, very dissatisfied with Xiao He's attitude. Seeing that the atmosphere was not right, Kenny quickly stepped out to smooth things over. Okay, no matter what the reason is, let's change to the spare tire and leave here first, okay? That's right, change the spare tire quickly, there are too many mosquitoes here. Genie was somewhat dissatisfied as he drove away the mosquitoes around him. Seeing this, Kenny had no choice but to open the trunk and start changing the spare tire. Roca didn't say anything. When the monster appeared, they would naturally understand how clownish their actions were. Let's get back to the car first. Roca said to Heather beside him. Heather nodded. The two then returned to the car. Roca, what is this ogre you were talking about? Heather was actually quite willing to believe what he said, and was also somewhat curious about the ogre he mentioned. It is a humanoid monster with bat wings. It wakes up from hibernation every 23 years and begins a 23-day-long hunt for humans. Wait, the monster will appear soon. Roca said this lightly, his expression still as relaxed as ever. This made Heather a little skeptical. Time passes by every second. It was at this time. A terrified shout came from a school bus not far from them, and the sound quickly disappeared into the sky. What happened? The sudden change scared Kenny, who had just changed the spare tire. It was the noise coming from the school bus. At this time, Genie and Xiao He also got out of the car to check. Did something really happen? Genie was somewhat confused. She recalled what Roca had said just now. Wasn't it confirmed now? It would be strange if anything went wrong. They have quite a few people over there. Xiao He still looked nonchalant, he thought the noise just now was just the students playing around. However, it was at this moment. Roca turned his car around and drove towards the school bus. Hey, what are they doing? We should go. Xiao He was a little dissatisfied when he saw that they went back directly. Maybe there's something going on. Kenny reluctantly put all the tools into the trunk and then returned to the car. He didn't start the car. I plan to wait for Roca and the others to come back before setting off again. At the same time. This is the school bus. After the screams of bald old black disappeared in the sky, the middle-aged female driver, bearded man, and a group of students below all looked at the sky at a loss. Then a burning stick fell from the sky. The middle-aged female driver and Mr. Hughes both felt something was wrong and hurriedly said to the students, "Everyone, get back in the car." Seeing this, the students all obediently returned to the car. The middle-aged female driver also wanted to look for the bald black man nearby. However, just as she lit the burning stick, she was grabbed by a pair of sharp claws and disappeared into the sky the next second. This time, both Mr. Huzii and the students in the school bus saw it. A dark shadow took the middle-aged female driver away. Seeing this, Teacher Huzii ran towards the school bus in panic. Open the door. After the students opened the door, Teacher Huzij wanted to get on the car, but unexpectedly, a pair of sharp claws fell from the sky and grabbed his shoulders. Now the students finally saw the black shadow clearly. It looked as ugly as a humanoid bat, with bat wings behind it, and was about the size of an adult. In an instant, the students screamed in fear. They had never seen such a horrible monster before. Although Mr. Huzii couldn't see the monster's appearance, he could tell from the expressions of his students that the monster that caught him was definitely very terrifying. For a moment he didn't know where the strength came from, allowing him to hold on tightly to the handrail of the car door. He started to struggle with the monster. At this time, a few brave boys also came forward and hugged the teacher, trying to pull the teacher back. However, their power was still too small. The next moment, the monster grabbed Teacher Huzij and lifted him into the sky. Several boys also had blood on their faces. Quick, close the car door. The terrified students hurriedly closed the car doors to prevent the monster from attacking again. An atmosphere of fear instantly filled the entire carriage. No one knows where the monster will attack from next time. It was at this time. A light shone from not far away, giving the frightened students a glimmer of hope. Then a Porsche stopped gracefully in front of them. Roca. Seeing him open the door and get out of the car, Heather screamed in fear. After seeing with her own eyes that monster taking people away, she completely believed what Roca had said before. So she didn't dare get off the car at all. It's okay, just stay in the car. Roca smiled and comforted her, then came to the school bus. Be careful in the sky. Be careful of monsters. When the students on the bus saw him get off, they all reminded him in a low voice. They didn't dare to make too much noise for fear of attracting the monster. Chapter 34. It's okay. As long as the monster dares to come, I can get rid of it. Roca shook his head, then took out his standard Saiga 12K shotgun and showed it off. The students were immediately excited when they saw that he had the truth. Even the fear from before had dissipated a lot. A boy bravely opened the car door. Come up quickly. No need, just stay in the car. Roca shook his head and then strode to the open space in front of the car. This bold scene really made the students nervous, but also aroused some admiration. Heather, with a nervous look on her face, wanted to ask him to get back in the car, but after thinking it over, she didn't say it out loud. For a moment, everyone stared at Roca. A tense atmosphere spread among the crowd. However, half an hour passed and there was no sign of the monster. Strange? Could it be that the monster hasn't finished eating yet? Roca looked at the dark sky with some confusion. Logically speaking, the monster should have eaten the 3 people it had just captured. And even if you don't eat it, you should continue hunting. Just as he was thinking this, suddenly, a shrill scream was heard from the distance. It's Ryan. Heather recognized the owner of the screaming voice as Ryan the Little Black. That monster is really cunning. Roca didn't expect that the ogre didn't attack them, but instead attacked the 3 lonely Xiaohei people. I saw a dark figure grab Xiaohei from the car and lift him into the sky, then disappear in the blink of an eye. It was no use for Roca to take out Barrett. Heather, call and ask if their car can still be driven, and ask them to come over quickly. Oh, okay. Heather immediately took out her phone upon hearing this. The call was connected soon. It was Jeannie who answered the phone, and you could tell from her voice how terrified she was. After all, the monster took Xiaohei away from her very eyes. She is also lucky. Otherwise, it is very likely that she would be the one arrested. Although the car's windows and roof were damaged, it was still startable. After a while, 2 people drove over. Oh, that monster is so scary. Ryan. Ryan was captured right in front of me. Jeannie said to several people very excitedly. It's okay. With Roca here, that monster won't dare to come again. Heather patted Jeannie's shoulder in comfort. You guys go get on the school bus first. In order to avoid being caught by the ogre again, Roca asked Heather and the other 2 to get on the school bus. He was left alone outside to attract the ogres. Jeannie and Kenny naturally had no objection to this. Be careful. Heather stood on tiptoe and kissed him on the cheek, then got on the school bus. Roca raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and then strode to the road in front of the car, waiting quietly for the ogre's attack. Everyone in the school bus watched this scene nervously. However, after waiting for a long time, there was still no sign of the ogre. It's like being afraid of something. Roca frowned. Could it be that the killer could sense the threat he posed to it? After thinking about it, he turned and walked to the school bus. I need a bait to lure the monster to attack. Is there anyone who can step forward? Hearing this, the students stepped back in fear, and no one said anything. They didn't even have time to hide, so how could they dare to go up and be bait? Isn't this courting death? However, there are still some brave boys among these students. A boy with a crew cut stood up and asked, is it dangerous? Of course there will be danger, but don't worry, I promise to save you before that monster takes you away. Roca patted his chest and assured. The ogre's strength was actually average, and the students in the original novel were able to poke a hole through his head. It's just that this monster has a strong recovery ability and can also fly. Otherwise there wouldn't be any need to go through so much trouble. Okay, I'll be the bait. The boy with a crew cut said this and got off the car bravely. Jonathan. A blonde female student in the car called him. Jonathan shook his head without saying anything, then strode out. What should I do? It's very simple. Just stand over there like I did just now. Roca pointed toward the dark road. Jonathan took a deep breath after hearing this, and then stepped forward courageously. To be honest, Roca still admires this boy a little. You know, not everyone can stand up when facing such danger. Not to mention trusting a stranger like him. It's literally putting your life in his hands. This requires tremendous courage. A little further. Roca motioned for him to move forward a little, as it wouldn't do to be too close. Jonathan trembled all over. He was a little scared at this moment, but he still took a few steps forward. Now he was 20 meters away from Roca. He even doubted whether Roca could really react. However, it was at this moment. A dark shadow suddenly appeared in the sky, swooping down towards Jonathan like a hunting falcon, while its claws were aimed at his shoulders. Jonathan was so frightened that he sat down on the ground. The next second the monster was in front of him. Bang! Roca had come to his side without hesitation and shot the ogre with a shotgun. The ogre staggered and let out a shrill howl. Chapter 35. Roca pulled the trigger again. One bullet after another kept hitting it. But this guy is different from the one in the movies. So many bullets hitting him have no effect at all. Instead, he turned around, flapped his wings, and tried to fly into the sky and escape. FK it, get down here. Roca put away his shotgun angrily, then jumped to a height of more than 10 meters, grabbed the ogre's feet and smashed it down hard. Bang! The next second, the ogre fell into the wasteland nearby, creating a big hole. I told you to run. Roca came to the ogre angrily, picked up the shotgun and shot him in the face a few times. He didn't stop until he smashed its head to pieces. In fact, he has always been reluctant to show his extraordinary strength in public, because it would be too conspicuous, so he always uses guns whenever possible. I just didn't expect that this ogre could escape so quickly. Fortunately, he reacted in time. Otherwise it would really run away. At this time, Heather and the other students in the school bus were all staring at this scene in amazement. What did they see? There was actually someone who could jump more than 10 meters high into the air and throw the monster down in one go. Is this something a human can do? Although everyone was somewhat shocked, they all heaved a sigh of relief when they saw the monster being caught. The students also plucked up the courage to open the car door and get out. Is it dead? Heather came to Roca's side and asked subconsciously when she saw the monster's head was smashed. But after asking, she felt a little embarrassed. After all, there is no possibility of survival if the head is smashed. However, Roca's answer surprised her. Of course it's still alive. This monster is different from ordinary killers. Strictly speaking, it's not a human being. If it was any other killer, even Jason, he would die if his head was blown apart. But the ogre in front of him was different. This guy is a complete monster. It cannot be measured by common sense. Not dead. Not only Heather was shocked when she heard this, but also the students who were watching the fun nearby. It may be worthwhile to catch it and study it. Roca suddenly had an idea, which was to set up a shelter institute to specifically shelter these monsters for experimental research. However, it is not so easy to contain all the monsters. If you are not careful, you will end up getting burned. But he still wanted to do it. Are you going to take this monster back with you? Heather was a little surprised to hear his words. Yes. Roca smiled and nodded. However, it was at this moment. Another car was coming in the distance. What happened? Just as old Farmer Jack was about to ask, he saw the headless ogre lying on the ground. His eyes suddenly turned red. Get out of the way. As Jack said this, he got out of the car and went to the back bed, where he had the harpoon weapon he had made to deal with the ogre. His youngest son was captured by the ogre more than 20 days ago. He has patrolled this area many times in order to seek revenge. Now I finally seized the opportunity. However, Roca stood in front of him and said, Old man, I advise you to come down quickly. Get out of my way, the monster is not dead yet, no one can kill it. Apparently Jack hadn't figured out the situation yet. He kept waving at Roca, signaling him to get out of the way. Roca shook his head, Old man, I know you want to kill it, but now it is my prey. You have no idea how horrible it is. Old Jack's face was filled with rage. In his opinion, this young man was just a newborn calf who was not afraid of a tiger and had no idea how powerful the ogre was. It will be too late by the time you find out. He would be arrested like his youngest son. Maybe this kid should be taught a lesson. But now is a good opportunity to kill the monster, and old Jack will not let it go. There's nothing to be afraid of, old man. I advise you to leave as soon as possible. Roca still shook his head with a calm tone. There was no way he would hand over this ogre to anyone. This was not only his trophy, but also the foundation for him to build a monster shelter. No one should even think of making any moves. Will you move aside? If not, I will shoot you to death as well. Old Jack has gone completely crazy, and he must avenge his youngest son today. Roca narrowed his eyes when he heard that, then strode up to old Jack, reached out and grabbed the truck bed with force. The car actually flipped over. Old Jack was caught off guard and fell to the ground. Roca has lost his patience. This old man keeps making trouble. Does he really think he dares not to kill anyone? The students behind him were also shocked by his move. He overturned a car with ease. How great is this power? Careful! Just then, Heather gave a horrified reminder. The monster with a smashed head behind him stood up again and attacked Roca in front of him. Roca grabbed the ogre's hands with a look of disdain. With a click. Just break his hands. Now let's see how it continues to struggle. Old Jack, who had gotten up from the ground, widened his eyes when he saw this. This young man, damn, is he still a human being? Roca broke the ogre's hands and feet, and then found an iron chain to tie him up. Finally, he got an iron oil barrel from Old Jack and put the ogre in it. Old Jack was helpless. He had no choice but to give up since he couldn't kill the ogre. Chapter 36. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission Shocking Ogre 2. Rewards are being distributed. Congratulations to the host for receiving $10 million and the ability to strengthen muscles and bones has been upgraded to LV2 in an instant. Roca felt that his body had become stronger in all aspects. Very good and very nice. There is also a reward of $10 million, which is just the startup capital for building a monster shelter. What are you going to do about it? At this time, Old Jack came over and asked somewhat unwillingly. Of course I'll take it back for research. Don't worry, this monster won't be able to escape. Roca patted him on the shoulder, then grabbed the oil drum and put it in the trunk of Kenny's Ford. There was no way, his Porsche couldn't fit it. Old Jack felt better after hearing this. At least the monster's final fate would not be good. This could be considered revenge for his youngest son. The police were then called to deal with the matter. By the time these things were resolved, it was already dawn. Xiao Hei's death made everyone feel unhappy. But now that I'm here, I naturally can't give up halfway. Fortunately, we are all young people, so it's okay if we don't get much rest for a night. Under Heather's guidance, they soon arrived at the iron gate of Carlson's Manor. Everyone gets off. This is the location mentioned in the address. Heather looked inside the fence gate and found that the manor was quite large. It was impossible to see what was inside from the outside because it was completely blocked by the woods. It must be huge in there. Like a castle, Jeannie and Kenny were a little envious. Just as a few people were looking around the manor, another car approached them. Then a white-haired old man got out of the car. Are you Mr. Faworth? I'm Heather. Heather asked tentatively. I knew it was you at first sight. You look exactly like me. Faworth came over with a kind smile. He was the lawyer who received the will and the one who sent the letter to Heather. Thank you for coming all the way here. I am willing to serve Raina. She is a good person and an elite figure, although there are many malicious slanders. At this point, Faworth couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect you to bring friends. Is it wrong? Heather was a little confused. Faworth shook his head. The house is yours now. You decide. By the way, you can't sell the house. It's all written in the will. No problem, thank you. In fact, Heather had already read the will and naturally had no objection to it. Then Faworth handed her the key to the manor, discussed the will with her, and also gave her a letter from Raina. After doing all this, Favors left. Okay, let's go in and take a look now. Heather put her things away and opened the iron gate with her key. Several people got in the car. Then drove inside. The manor was very large, and after passing through a lush forest, they finally saw the house. It's a big house, by God. After seeing the mansion in the middle of the woods, Jeannie couldn't help but exclaim. This mansion is too big, like a castle. Roca looked around and found that this location was indeed quite good. The manor was very large, at least several kilometers in size, and was surrounded by woods. The mansion is completely invisible from the outside. It would be great if we could build a monster shelter underground. The four entered the mansion. It's so cool, it looks even more luxurious than outside. Incredible, is this true? Jeannie and Kenny were both stunned by the luxurious decoration inside. Not only them, Heather was also shocked by the scene before her. She had never seen such a luxurious villa. When she thought that this place belonged to her, a bright smile appeared on her face. I don't even know where to start visiting. Heather smiled and said to Roca behind her. It would be best to check around and then hire a nanny to clean the place. Roca suggested with a smile. If he remembered correctly, there was still a Leatherface in this manner. If he wants to attract attention here, he must deal with this mentally ill murderer Leatherface. That's a very good suggestion. Heather nodded, thinking it was necessary to hire a nanny to clean the house. After all, no one has lived here for a long time, there is dust everywhere, and the lawn needs to be mowed. But let's take a look around here first. With such a luxurious mansion in front of you, you naturally have to take a good look at it. No one had any objection. Then several people started to visit. Along the way, Jeannie and Kenny were amazed. By the way, Heather, what did your grandmother do? How could she leave you such a mansion? Jeannie asked suddenly curiously. I have no idea. Heather shrugged helplessly. In fact, she was also very curious about what her grandmother did and who her parents were. Come on, I'll take you around. Roca knew something about Heather's background. She was from the Sawyer family of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. More than 10 years ago. After the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, one incident, the angry villagers burned down his house. It seems that the only ones who survived are Heather's grandmother and Leatherface. But he won't tell this matter. This was too cruel for Heather. Chapter 37. Okay. Heather readily agreed. Seeing this, Jeannie and Kenny naturally would not be a light bulb. Then let's go over here and take a look. The two chose a different direction from them. Roca chose the direction of the kitchen because he remembered that Leatherface was in the basement below the kitchen. Let's deal with this guy first. After the two sides separated, Roca pushed open the door of the restaurant. It's a luxurious restaurant. Heather was somewhat surprised to see the furnishings in the restaurant. Haha, have you ever seen a table full of tableware before the diners arrive? Roca smiled meaningfully. Kindness. Heather was a little confused when she heard this. It was indeed a little strange to say this. Why are the cutlery placed on the table if there is no one eating? Isn't this just waiting to be covered in dust? No cutlery storage cabinet? Or maybe there was something urgent that made him not have time to clean up the dishes. This doesn't make sense. There seems to be a compartment over here. Roca easily found the secret door leading to the basement. In fact, it is not difficult to find. It seems that because the last person who entered did not close the door tightly, there was a gap, so it looks very obvious. And there is no door handle, and it would be difficult to find if there wasn't a gap in the door. Go in and take a look. Heather pushed the door open curiously and walked in. The compartment inside is not big, and some utensils are placed on the shelves on both sides. But there is another door here. What exactly is this place used for? Heather looked at the door in confusion. You'll know after you go in and take a look. Roca opened the door and a staircase leading downwards appeared in front of the two. The two of them walked down. I found a red wooden door inside. Heather couldn't help but look at Roca when she saw this. Everything here was really weird. What on earth was stored there? Why was it so mysterious? Open it and take a look. It's okay as long as I'm here. Hearing this, Heather felt relieved. Even the flying ogres are no match for Roca, so she has nothing to fear. Thinking of this, Heather took out the key and opened the wooden door. The two of them walked in. I found that it was not very big and there were a lot of drinks stored. It looks like a wine cellar. But there is a fourth door in the wine cellar, and there is a dinner plate in front of this door. There was rotten food on the plate. Is there something in here? Heather said and looked at Roca with some confusion. Maybe this is where someone is imprisoned? We'll know once we open it and take a look. Roca naturally knew who was inside. Now, the only ones left in the entire Sawyer family are Heather and Leatherface in the door. It's a pity that this Leatherface is a mentally ill guy. Otherwise, he would be a good candidate to be a house guard. In the movie, Jeannie, Kenny, and Blackie were all attacked by Leatherface, who killed them with ease. I don't find a door handle up there. Heather followed his advice and wanted to open the door, but she couldn't find the way to open it after searching around. This door seems to be able to be opened only from the inside. Watch me. Roca walked over and tried to push the door with one hand. It turned out that the wooden door was quite sturdy. The next moment he raised his foot and kicked hard. Bang! After a loud noise, the door was kicked open successfully. Wow! Heather exclaimed at his prowess. However, before she could say anything else, a figure rushed out from behind the door with a chainsaw. Yeah, Heather was so frightened that she turned pale and quickly hid behind Roca. Roca remained calm and kicked the Leatherface to the ground. Even though this guy is a psychopath, he is actually tall and strong. And with an electric saw in his hand, most people are no match for him. Who are you? Heather asked with some fear when she saw that the man was disheveled and wearing a mask. However, Leatherface would not answer her question. After getting up from the ground, he rushed up again with the chainsaw in hand. This time Roca didn't hold back and kicked Leatherface in the neck with a high whip kick. Snap! There was a crisp sound of bones breaking, and then the human-faced man fell straight down. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. Rewards are being distributed. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Flame of Hellfire. Roca's eyes lit up. Could it be that? If that's really the case, it would be terrible. Ghosts and evil spirits would be no match for him. Thinking of this, he looked carefully. Unexpectedly, it was just as he guessed. The Hellfire was the unique ability of Ghost Rider, a flame that could burn the flesh and soul. It is the nemesis of all demons and ghosts. He can also use the flames of hell to possess others, and when the flesh and blood are burned, he will transform into the form of Ghost Rider. If she doesn't wear clothes, she's just a skeleton in a ball of fire and you can't tell her figure. If clothes are put on, part of the body shape in human form can be revealed, and the body shape is better than that of the host in human form. Moreover, the fire of hell can burn any substance at will, or not harm anything Ghost Rider touches. However, Roca's is only LV1 Hellfire and cannot transform yet. But this is already very powerful when dealing with some ghosts. This really gave him a surprise. With the Hellfire, he will be able to deal with ghosts and Cthulhu. Roca, in a good mood, turned to look at Heather and said, "You won't blame me for killing him, will you?" "Of course not." Heather looked at him strangely. "This guy wants to kill us, but I don't know who he is." "You want to know your origins?" Roca naturally knew what she was thinking. Chapter 38. Yes. Heather shrugged. She came here for two reasons. One was to inherit her grandmother's estate, and the other was to find out about her own life experience. Maybe we can go to a nearby town and look for clues, like in a newspaper or something. Newspaper? Heather felt a little puzzled when she heard his words. What did her life experience have to do with the newspaper? But she nodded anyway. Anyway, I have no idea now. It's better to listen to him. Let's deal with this body first. Roca said as he loaded Leatherface's body into the system space. Then he went to the cemetery in the backyard, dug a hole and buried him. Heather had no opinion on this, but was just surprised by his methods. "Hey, we plan to stay here tonight?" At this time, Jeannie and Kenny came over excitedly. "Sure." Heather smiled and nodded. "Then let's go to the nearby town to buy some supplies. I want to have a wild party," Jeannie said happily. "No problem." It just so happened that they were also going to a nearby town, so Heather naturally had no reason to refuse. A moment later, the four arrived at a nearby town. "Let's go over there and see you later." Kenny said hello to them and went to the other side of the town. The two parties agreed to meet here later and then return to the manor together. "Let's go and get some information," Roca said to Heather with a smile. "Kindness." Heather nodded, feeling a little nervous. What was the mystery of her life? "Boss, give me a newspaper." "Get it yourself." In front of a newsstand, Roca bought a newspaper at random, and then asked the fat newsstand owner, "Boss, do you know Carlson's Manor?" "Carlson's Manor? Isn't there anyone there?" The fat boss looked at him with some confusion. "Just asking around." "Then you'd better not ask." After the fat boss finished speaking, he just looked at the newspaper in his hand and ignored the two of them. Roca smiled helplessly at Heather beside him. Heather smiled playfully. "Okay, boss." Roca handed over $100 and said, "I want to ask you about Carlson's estate and the Sawyer family. Is that okay?" The fat boss' attitude immediately changed when he saw the US dollars. He quickly put away the $100 and then said with a smile on his face, "Almost everyone in the town knows about this matter. It was even reported in the newspaper. I'll look for it." "This is it." The fat boss handed over a newspaper. Roca took the newspaper and read it, and found that the newspaper recorded the incident of the Sawyer family being wiped out more than 10 years ago. It was clearly written above that the Sawyer family had killed 4 young men. The remaining girl went to the town to call the police. The police came to the Sawyer family to find the murderer. But the Sawyer family refused to hand over the person. To them, family is the most important. Then the angry townspeople surrounded the Sawyer family and set fire to the Sawyer family's house. The matter ended after a gunfight between the two sides. Inside the car. After learning about what happened in the newspaper, Heather was a little bit unbelievable. She never thought that her family turned out to be such a group of people. He never expected that his entire family would be wiped out like this. For a moment she was at a loss. She didn't know whether she should feel sad for the Sawyer family. After all, the Sawyer family was like a group of crazy people. But it was her family. Don't think too much. You are you. The Sawyer family is a thing of the past. You should live your own way. Roca handed her a tissue and comforted her softly. In his opinion, there was no need to be sad for the Sawyer family. Of course, the townspeople who killed the Sawyer family were not good people either. In short, just distance yourself from these two parties and live your own life. I understand. Heather wiped her tears and took a deep breath. You're right. The Sawyer family is a thing of the past anyway, and I don't remember them. So, from today on, I'm going to live for myself. That's right, don't worry too much about the past. Roca nodded with relief. Then let's go buy some ingredients now. By the way, do you have a big appetite? It's okay. Then buy more. Heather's face was filled with a bright smile again. In fact, she had no impression of the Sawyer family at all, so how could she feel sad about it? Living in the present is what we should do now. Soon, after purchasing some ingredients and necessities. Just then, Jeannie and Kenny came back. So the group returned to Carlson's manor. A migration party was held at the estate. Cheers! In the luxuriously decorated restaurant, 4 people raised their glasses and shouted. The party has officially begun. During this time, Jeannie and Kenny kept asking about Roca's identity and affairs, and it was obvious that both of them were very interested in him. But Roca cleverly fooled them all. Besides, he had nothing to say. It was almost early morning when the party ended. Kenny and I are going to take a break, you guys continue. Jeannie helped the drunk Kenny to rest, and gave the two of them an ambiguous smile before leaving. Although Roca drank a lot, he was not drunk at all. On the contrary, Heather looked drunk, and her flushed cheeks became particularly attractive under the light, especially her pink lips that made people want to take a bite. Chapter 39. Roca, my room is over here. Heather leaned against him, looking drunk, and pointed to the room that had been cleaned up during the day. Roca's room was next door. Okay, I'll take you upstairs to rest. Seeing that she was drunk and unconscious, Roca had no choice but to pick her up like a princess and then went upstairs to her room. Have a good rest. Roca simply took off her top and prepared to tuck her into the quilt. Unexpectedly, Heather suddenly stretched out her white arms and hugged his neck. Roca looked up in surprise, only to see Heather's charming eyes staring at him. It was obvious that this girl was just pretending to be drunk. Don't you regret it? Actually, I have a girlfriend. Roca confessed directly to avoid the trouble of explaining later. If she is willing, she will agree, if she is not willing, she will not be forced. Sure enough, Heather bit her lips lightly with some reluctance after hearing that he had a girlfriend again. Although I had guessed that Roca might have a girlfriend, I was still a little disappointed when I heard it with my own ears. Even though they had only known each other for a few days. But along the way, the man in front of her gave her too many surprises. Not only was he tall and handsome, but he was also very powerful. He could even easily deal with the ogre monster. And he cared for her and loved her everywhere, and helped her solve her problems. Where can I find such a good man? Thinking of this, she still asked unwillingly, then will you abandon me? Of course not. I will not abandon any of my women. Roca's answer without hesitation made her very satisfied. Then, love me. Heather said and then offered a kiss. It's no wonder that it's Daddario. Her figure, appearance, and temperament give her a completely different feeling, which makes people unable to stop. Suddenly the garden is full of spring colors. The next day, Roca talks to Heather about building a monster shelter beneath her estate. Monster asylum. Heather was surprised to hear this. Yes, just like the ogre we caught before. Unfortunately, we killed all the monsters we encountered before. Roca felt a little regretful, but Jason was fine, because that guy could be resurrected. Find a time to revive it and then catch it. But it's a pity for Freddy and the Axe Maniac. These two major probabilities cannot be resurrected. If he had this idea earlier, it would not be impossible for Freddy to catch him. He just needed to control his remains. If we study it properly, we might be able to find a way to gain power, or even make people immortal. The purpose of establishing a shelter is not just to house monsters. It's better to study these monsters, maybe we can find something out of them. And even if we can't figure it out, we can still sell it to some capitalists, right? I believe that the capitalists will definitely pay for this. Heather's eyes lit up after hearing this. If she could really do what Roca said, she would be very willing to do it. Of course, she would agree even if there was no benefit. I agree. Now you are the owner of this manor. You can do whatever you want. Thanks. Roca smiled and gave her a sip as a thank you. But this matter still needs long-term consideration. It is not easy to build a huge monster shelter underground, and the project definitely cannot be completed in a short period of time. In addition, research equipment and researchers also need to be considered. I'll come and help too. Heather said with a smile, I don't need to work now anyway, so I can help you deal with these things. What she inherited was not only a mansion, but also a large amount of wealth and assets. These assets are enough for her to squander for a lifetime. That's a real help. Roca is having a headache now. The monster shelter project cannot be completed by one person alone. He plans to involve Tina, Maria, Nancy, and Christine in this plan. There's no rush for these things. Let's go out for a walk. Roca was not in a hurry to start this plan, as he had plenty of time. The next day, Jeannie and Kenny come to say goodbye to the two. You guys are leaving. Heather was a little surprised. Of course, we are not like you and don't need to work. Jeannie shrugged helplessly. If possible, she also wanted to live a carefree life without having to work. Unfortunately not. Came here to rest for 3 days. If I don't go back to work, I'm afraid I'll be fired. Same thing with Kenny. Okay. Heather was a little helpless after hearing that, then you are welcome to come next time. Yes, remember to attend Ryan's funeral in a few days. I will. Jeannie and Kenny said goodbye, packed up their things and left. Now Roca and Heather are the only two people left in the entire manor. I've called Nancy and Christine to come over. Next, I need to find a famous architect to design a plan for the monster shelter. While there was still time, Roca immediately contacted Nancy and Christine to come and help. Then he contacted a well-known architect to discuss the construction of a monster shelter. Don't worry about the research equipment and researchers for now, let's get the monster shelter ready first. If everything goes well, the monster shelter might be built within a year. Of course, this will definitely require a large investment. Fortunately, Roca still has more than $10 million. In this era, the purchasing power of 10 million is equivalent to tens of billions of US dollars today. It is sufficient for the present stage. Chapter 39. Roca, my room is over here. Heather leaned against him, looking drunk, and pointed to the room that had been cleaned up during the day. Roca's room was next door. Okay, I'll take you upstairs to rest. Seeing that she was drunk and unconscious, Roca had no choice but to pick her up like a princess and then went upstairs to her room. Have a good rest. Roca simply took off her top and prepared to tuck her into the quilt. Unexpectedly, Heather suddenly stretched out her white arms and hugged his neck. Roca looked up in surprise, only to see Heather's charming eyes staring at him. It was obvious that this girl was just pretending to be drunk. Don't you regret it? Actually, I have a girlfriend. Roca confessed directly to avoid the trouble of explaining later. If she is willing, she will agree, if she is not willing, she will not be forced. Sure enough, Heather bit her lips lightly with some reluctance after hearing that he had a girlfriend again. Although I had guessed that Roca might have a girlfriend, I was still a little disappointed when I heard it with my own ears. Even though they had only known each other for a few days. But along the way, the man in front of her gave her too many surprises. Not only was he tall and handsome, but he was also very powerful. He could even easily deal with the ogre monster. And he cared for her and loved her everywhere, and helped her solve her problems. Where can I find such a good man? Thinking of this, she still asked unwillingly, then will you abandon me? Of course not. I will not abandon any of my women. Roca's answer without hesitation made her very satisfied. Then, love me. Heather said and then offered a kiss. It's no wonder that it's Daddario. Her figure, appearance, and temperament give her a completely different feeling, which makes people unable to stop. Suddenly the garden is full of spring colors. The next day, Roca talks to Heather about building a monster shelter beneath her estate. Monster asylum. Heather was surprised to hear this. Yes, just like the ogre we caught before. Unfortunately, we killed all the monsters we encountered before. Roca felt a little regretful, but Jason was fine, because that guy could be resurrected. Find a time to revive it and then catch it. But it's a pity for Freddy and the Axe Maniac. These two major probabilities cannot be resurrected. If he had this idea earlier, it would not be impossible for Freddy to catch him. He just needed to control his remains. If we study it properly, we might be able to find a way to gain power, or even make people immortal. The purpose of establishing a shelter is not just to house monsters. It's better to study these monsters, maybe we can find something out of them. And even if we can't figure it out, we can still sell it to some capitalists, right? I believe that the capitalists will definitely pay for this. Heather's eyes lit up after hearing this. If she could really do what Roca said, she would be very willing to do it. Of course, she would agree even if there was no benefit. I agree. Now you are the owner of this manor. You can do whatever you want. Thanks. Roca smiled and gave her a sip as a thank you. But this matter still needs long-term consideration. It is not easy to build a huge monster shelter underground, and the project definitely cannot be completed in a short period of time. In addition, research equipment and researchers also need to be considered. I'll come and help too. Heather said with a smile, I don't need to work now anyway, so I can help you deal with these things. What she inherited was not only a mansion, but also a large amount of wealth and assets. These assets are enough for her to squander for a lifetime. That's a real help. Roca is having a headache now. The monster shelter project cannot be completed by one person alone. He plans to involve Tina, Maria, Nancy, and Christine in this plan. There's no rush for these things. Let's go out for a walk. Roca was not in a hurry to start this plan, as he had plenty of time. The next day, Jeannie and Kenny come to say goodbye to the two. You guys are leaving. Heather was a little surprised. Of course, we are not like you and don't need to work. Jeannie shrugged helplessly. If possible, she also wanted to live a carefree life without having to work. Unfortunately not. Came here to rest for 3 days. If I don't go back to work, I'm afraid I'll be fired. Same thing with Kenny. Okay. Heather was a little helpless after hearing that, then you are welcome to come next time. Yes, remember to attend Ryan's funeral in a few days. I will. Jeannie and Kenny said goodbye, packed up their things and left. Now Roca and Heather are the only two people left in the entire manor. I've called Nancy and Christine to come over. Next, I need to find a famous architect to design a plan for the monster shelter. While there was still time, Roca immediately contacted Nancy and Christine to come and help. Then he contacted a well-known architect to discuss the construction of a monster shelter. Don't worry about the research equipment and researchers for now, let's get the monster shelter ready first. If everything goes well, the monster shelter might be built within a year. Of course, this will definitely require a large investment. Fortunately, Roca still has more than $10 million. In this era, the purchasing power of 10 million is equivalent to tens of billions of US dollars today. It is sufficient for the present stage. Chapter 41. This film is a classic among classics. And since it was against Mary Shaw, he didn't have to worry at all. After all, knowing yourself and knowing your enemy, as long as all of Mary Shaw's puppets are eliminated, Mary Shaw can be defeated. And he just happened to know the locations of all of Mary Shaw's dolls. Perhaps it is also possible to control Mary Shaw with the fire of hell and make her a member of the monster shelter. This really kills two birds with one stone. Without further ado, Roca immediately accepted Jamie's commission. The next day, the three drove to the small town of Ravensfell to meet up with Jamie. It's just that Jamie seemed to have returned to his childhood birthplace ahead of time, so the three of them had no choice but to go to his ancestral home. As soon as I arrived here, I saw Jamie coming out of his ancestral home. Hey, Roca had some impression of Jamie, a handsome young man. When he saw him come out, he immediately raised his hand and greeted him. You are the exorcist. Jamie was a little bit unbelieving. In his opinion, an exorcist should be a middle-aged or old man dressed in special clothes. What's up with this guy who hasn't even graduated from school yet? Don't worry, if any evil spirits appear, just leave it to me. I promise I won't let you down. Roca smiled nonchalantly. Seeing how confident he was, Jamie believed it a little. After all, no one would joke about their own life, right? Hey, you brought a female companion. Just when Jamie was convincing himself of his ability, he saw two women in his car. This made him very unhappy. After all, he was not joking, there really were evil spirits killing people. You're so young, but why are you bringing two women with you? Are you here for sightseeing? Oh, you should be even more relieved. If I wasn't absolutely sure that they were evil spirits, I wouldn't have brought them out to learn more, right? Roca shrugged nonchalantly. Although Jamie was still a little angry, he also felt that there was some truth in what he said. So he suppressed his dissatisfaction and took a deep breath. Okay, I won't ask about these. I'm going to discuss the burial with Henry, the undertaker. As for you, of course we are here with you to protect you. Roca said without hesitation. Although the commission was only to get rid of evil spirits, if his employer died, he would not get paid. Good. Jamie didn't waste any time and took the three of them to the undertaker Henry to discuss the burial of his wife Lisa. Roca, have you found the evil spirit? In the living room of Henry's house, Tina looked at Jamie who was discussing the burial matters with old Henry in the room, and asked in a low voice with some curiosity. Of course, don't you already know that? Roca smiled as a matter of course while drinking his tea. What? Tina and Maria looked at each other, then looked at each other in confusion. It's Mary Shaw, didn't you hear Jamie say that? Mary Shaw? Is it true that the doll turned into an evil spirit? Tina and Maria suddenly became excited. Seeing this, Roca said in a low voice, maybe Mary Shaw will come to find us at night. It's very scary. Don't be scared to death then. How annoying. Tina rolled her eyes at him, but to be honest, she still felt a little creepy. Don't worry, at worst I can sleep with you tonight. Maria said something shocking, but she was not at all embarrassed. They've done it at home anyway. Yeah, anyway, Roca, you have to protect us when the time comes. Tina reacted and looked as if it was a matter of course. Okay, I just hope you won't be scared and scream when the time comes. When Roca thought of the two women screaming in fear at the sudden appearance of the Mary Shaw doll in the room, he couldn't help but want to cover his ears. Having too strong hearing is not a good thing. And it's best not to scream in front of Mary Shaw. That's when Tina and Maria promised not to be scared. Jamie finally came out of the room, and seeing the three of them talking and laughing, he felt even more unhappy. As we have agreed, the burial will take place tomorrow. So Jamie took Roca and the other two back home. Jamie, I didn't expect you to bring friends back. Roca and his two companions were greeted by a young and beautiful blonde woman named Ella, who was also the third wife of Jamie's father Edward. Of course, this is just her public identity. Yes. Jamie nodded expressionlessly. Excuse me, ma'am. Roca narrowed his eyes, looked the other person up and down, then smiled. Excuse me. Tina and Maria were quite fond of the beautiful and generous lady in front of them. Since you are Jamie's friends, you can stay here. I will arrange a room for you. Jamie, please entertain your friends. Ella said with a smile and turned to prepare the room. Hey, I didn't expect your father to marry such a young lady. After seeing Ella leave, Tina couldn't help but tease Jamie. Jamie didn't say anything. In fact, he didn't know when his father married such a young wife. Tina felt a little bored when she saw that he didn't say anything. After a moment, Ella informed the three that the room was ready. You guys go and rest first. By the way, there's a nursery rhyme about Mary Shaw that you must know. Jamie warned the three before leaving. Chapter 42. What nursery rhyme? Maria asked curiously. Beware the stare of Mary Shaw, she had no children, only dolls, and make her in your dreams, be sure you never, ever scream. After Jamie finished reciting the nursery rhyme, he turned and left. Tina and Maria were left staring at each other. Hey, this nursery rhyme sounds pretty good. Tina repeated it and felt it was pretty good and catchy. What does that mean? Maria was a little confused about the meaning of this nursery rhyme. Of course, I want you to not scream when you see Mary Shaw, otherwise you will be killed by Mary Shaw. Roca directly revealed one of Mary Shaw's abilities, anyone who screams in front of Mary Shaw will have their tongue pulled out and be killed. This ability is unsolvable. It's good to have him there. If he is gone, the two women will be in great danger. Of course, Tina's superpowers might be able to hold off a bit, but this girl seems to have neglected practicing her superpowers recently. Is it true? It was obvious that Tina still didn't quite believe it. Maria was different. She still believed what Roca said. Night. Originally, Ella arranged 3 rooms for the 3 people, but it was obvious that they did not need so many rooms. In fact, 1 room is enough. Hey, why is there a doll in the room? When Tina passed the living room after taking a shower, she found a strange doll the size of a 6-year-old child in the living room, so she picked it up and took a look. This doll is very finely crafted. Maria also came over with some curiosity, and she also liked this doll very much. Do you like it? Roca asked with a smile. Kindness. Tina nodded. This is Mary Shaw's puppet. Scared when Tina heard what he said, she was frightened and quickly threw Mary Shaw's doll to the ground. Maria was also shocked. Honey, you said this doll is Mary Shaw. Roca shook his head. I said this is Mary Shaw's puppet, but I didn't say this puppet is Mary Shaw. So Mary Shaw has a lot of dolls. Tina responded. Hurry up and throw this doll out. It's ugly. Maria, who was quite fond of this doll just now has a look of disgust on her face. Seeing this, Tina immediately picked up Mary Shaw's doll and threw it out. Okay, no one will bother us now. As Tina said this, she took the initiative to hug Roca's neck and kissed him. It seemed that the shock just now did not dampen her interest at all. Helpless, Roca could only let them do as they pleased. Early morning. After tossing and turning for several hours, the 3 of them fell asleep feeling a little tired. Crunch, a slight sound was heard in the living room, followed by the sound of a door closing. Then the atmosphere in the living room became weird. Then the door was twisted by some mysterious force. Snap, another soft sound was heard. Even in this silent night, it seemed insignificant. Gradually, a dark shadow approached the 3 people on the bed. The eerie atmosphere made the whole room look scary and gloomy. Next second. Snap. The room light was suddenly turned on. Then Roca and the other 2 who had fallen asleep opened their eyes at the same time. Ahaha, you monster finally showed up. Tina and Maria immediately looked towards the strange thing. It would be fine if you didn't look at it, but it's really scary when you do. They saw that the Mary Shaw doll that they had just thrown out had appeared on the table in the room at some point, and a pair of eyes were staring at them strangely. Even though Roca had just reminded him that Mary Shaw would definitely come, he was still shocked by this horrifying scene. Fortunately, both girls remembered what Roca said, so they didn't scream. If the 2 of them were to encounter this situation alone, they would definitely not be able to remain so calm. What to do? Tina turned to look at Roca, wanting him to make the decision. Roca grinned, since it's here, I can't send it away. Look at me. As he said this, he grabbed Mary Shaw's doll in his hand. The doll's eyes seemed to be staring at him, which looked extremely weird. Roca couldn't help but grin and said, try this. As the words fell, a flame suddenly rose from his palm and enveloped the entire puppet. Next second. A sharp and piercing sound was heard, causing Maria and Tina to cover their ears in pain. The miserable cry seemed to penetrate into the soul, making people feel extremely uncomfortable. But it goes as quickly as it comes. Soon the screams disappeared. The Mary Shaw doll in his hand also turned into ashes and disappeared. Okay, now Mary Shaw shouldn't dare to come to us. Roca said with a bright smile on his face. You have to know that Mary Shaw's soul resides in the doll, so this blow was definitely enough to make Mary Shaw suffer a lot. I don't think I'll cause any trouble for them tonight. Is it dead? Maria asked in panic, releasing her hands from covering her ears. Should he be dead? Tina made a bold guess. After all, the evil spirit had just let out such a miserable cry, how could it be okay? Roca shook his head with amusement, no, it's just one of Mary Shaw's puppets. As long as all of Mary Shaw's puppets are not destroyed, then Mary Shaw is immortal. Chapter 43. So that's how it is. This evil spirit is really powerful. Tina was a little surprised. My dear, you are the most powerful. What was that flame you used just now? Alan was a little scared. Speaking so boldly, it is obvious that Maria and Alan have exchanged souls. That was called hellfire. It is the power from hell. Any soul will be restrained in front of it. Okay, don't be afraid, baby Alan. Roca hugged her and comforted her softly. Although Alan's soul resides in Maria's body, he still feels an innate fear when facing this kind of power. This is also normal. No wonder you agreed to bring us along this time, dear. It turns out you have mastered the power to deal with evil spirits. Tina also suddenly realized, and she asked why Roca agreed to come with them so immediately. So that's how it is. For a moment, her heart was filled with emotion. Honey, I wonder if you can do it. Tina leered at him as she took off her nightgown. Roca raised his eyebrows and said, a man can't say no. I hope you won't beg for mercy later. It's not certain who will beg for mercy. Tina's eyes were full of provocation. Wait, just as Tina squatted down, Roca suddenly stopped her. What? You're begging for mercy before it even starts. Tina looked at him provocatively. Roca couldn't help but roll his eyes. I'll teach you a lesson later. Now I should go check on Jamie, my employer. Otherwise, he will be scared silly by Mary Shaw sooner or later. That's right. Alan also reacted and realized that they were all attacked by Mary Shaw. Not to mention Jamie's side. She must have encountered Mary Shaw. So the three of them put on their clothes and went next door. As expected. As soon as I arrived at the door of Jamie's room, I heard noise coming from inside. Jamie, are you okay? Roca knocked on the door and said loudly. Yet there was no movement in the room. Seeing this, Roca didn't waste any words and kicked the door open. Hey Jamie, are you okay? When I turned on the light, I saw Jamie sitting in the corner with a terrified look on his face, his eyes fixed on the other side. But when I followed his gaze, there was nothing. It was a bit strange that only the window was open. Are you okay? Roca came up to Jamie and said with some amusement. It goes without saying that Jamie must have seen Mary Shaw's puppet. But their arrival made Mary Shaw escape. It took Jamie a while to come back to his senses. He was now covered in cold sweat and his face was uncontrollably stiff. But I still thanked them. Thanks. Haha, you are my employer. If you die, I won't get any salary. Roca patted his shoulder playfully. Didn't you meet him? This question suddenly occurred to Jamie. Of course I did. They were Mary Shaw's puppets. But I killed one of them. Roca said lightly. What? Jamie was stunned for a moment, then a little surprised. You have dealt with Mary Shaw? Of course not, what are you thinking? Roca rolled his eyes. What we saw was just Mary Shaw's puppet. If we want to destroy it, we probably have to destroy all of Mary Shaw's puppets. Jamie thought this made sense, and he never dared to underestimate Roca again. This exorcist master really has some skills. I roughly know where the remaining dolls are. I'll take you there after the funeral tomorrow. Jamie naturally wanted to eliminate Mary Shaw as well, and he could even be said to be impatient. But in any case, it has to wait until the funeral of his wife Lisa is completed. Then we'll go back first. Roca said as he was about to leave with Maria and Tina. Wait, Jamie is still a little scared. What if Mary Shaw comes back? Don't worry, Mary Shaw won't come again after suffering a loss tonight. What if it comes? Then I guessed wrong. Roca couldn't help rolling his eyes, then he took Maria and Tina away. Jamie was left with his mouth twitching slightly. He had no choice but to close the doors and windows and turn off the lights so that he could fall asleep again. The next day, Jamie started busying himself with his wife's funeral early in the morning. Roca and his friends attended as friends, but unfortunately there seemed to be no custom of having banquets here. The entire funeral was held in silence. Even in the small town, few people come. Wait until after the funeral. Jamie had planned to go with Roca immediately to deal with Mary Shaw's remaining puppets. Unexpectedly, the sheriff in charge of the murder case of Jamie's wife came at this time, holding a Mary Shaw doll in his hand. It seems that my arrival is not welcome. Seeing Jamie staring at him, Sheriff Sean couldn't help but shrugged. In fact, the case of Lisa's death is not over yet. Since no clues could be found, Jamie, as the husband, naturally became the first suspect. Although this sounds absurd. But there is no other way, after all, there are no other suspects. It's best to get rid of that puppet. In fact, Jamie was not staring at the sheriff himself, but the Mary Shaw doll in his hand. Having just experienced such a horrific thing last night, he naturally would not turn a blind eye to Mary Shaw's doll. No, this is evidence. The sheriff shook his head. He would be a fool to destroy the evidence. Listen to me, that's Mary Shaw's doll. If you don't get rid of it, it will. Stop, 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 I don't believe these ghost stories. The sheriff interrupted him, saying he didn't believe a word of these ghost stories. If all crimes are committed by ghosts, what is the point of having police? Chapter 44. Jamie felt helpless after hearing this. Seeing that the sheriff was still going to take Mary Shaw away, he had to warn again, you'd better listen. Don't scream when you see Mary Shaw, otherwise your tongue will be pulled out. I guess you're trying to divert my attention, or are you the murderer? The sheriff sneered and still didn't believe him. Jamie grabbed the sheriff's collar angrily after hearing this. He loved Lisa so much, and they were planning to have a child, so how could he be a murderer? This is absolutely an insult to him. All right, calm down, Jamie. Roca, who had been silent, finally spoke. After hearing this, Jamie let the sheriff go. Sheriff, since you don't believe in Mary Shaw's existence, do you dare to scream at the doll? Roca smiled with a playful expression. You are so mean. After hearing this, Tina also showed a playful smile, as if she was waiting to see the show. Although Maria didn't say anything, she looked at the sheriff with interest. Being stared at by them, the sheriff felt a little uneasy for some reason. Why should I listen to you? The sheriff still seemed a little stubborn. Don't you believe that Mary Shaw is an evil spirit? Then why don't you dare to do it? Jamie also said in a provocative tone. You, just do it, it's nothing big. The sheriff was successfully enraged. In his opinion, it was just an ordinary puppet in a fictitious ghost story. What's so great about that? Could it be possible that Mary Shaw could really get out of the doll? Thinking of this, he immediately plucked up some courage and brought the doll of Mary Shaw in front of him. When I first saw Mary Shaw, I thought she was nothing special, and even thought she was delicate and cute. But after looking at it for a few times, the sheriff always felt a creepy feeling for some reason. The puppet in front of him seemed to be looking at him with a weird look. Why? Are you scared? Seeing that he was slow to move, Tina couldn't help but urge him. The sheriff looked up and glanced at her without saying anything, then took a deep breath. Ah, it's okay, haha. The sheriff couldn't help but laugh as he looked at the puppet, which hadn't changed at all. However, he was greeted with contemptuous looks from several people. Uncle Sheriff, can you be a little braver? I could hardly hear your scream just now. Alan, who looked a little sinister, rolled his eyes. The sheriff could no longer bear being looked down upon by such a beautiful girl. He took a deep breath and screamed loudly at the puppet. You know what, this sheriff is really full of energy. But rather than screaming, it's better to say shouting loudly. But it doesn't matter, the goal has been achieved. In an instant, a strange atmosphere filled the entire room, and the lights dimmed at this moment. The sheriff was startled and subconsciously wanted to throw the puppet in his hand away, but he found that his whole body could not move. At this moment, fear continued to grow in the sheriff's heart. He wanted to scream, but found that he could not make any sound. He could only open his mouth and remain motionless. It was like some weird rule was triggered. A strange black shadow came out of Mary Shaw's puppet and attacked the sheriff's mouth. Apparently it was to pull out his tongue. Seeing this, Roca stopped watching the show, and with the flames of hell attached to his palm, he suddenly grabbed the black shadow. The black shadow let out a shrill scream after being caught off guard. In the blink of an eye, it was burned to ashes by the flames of hell. When it's all over. Miraculously, the lights in the house were restored. Then the sheriff sat down on the ground, gasping for breath, his forehead covered with cold sweat. How about it? Now you can finally believe it. Maria came back to her senses and said with a devilish smile. The sheriff nodded repeatedly. He swallowed and then said to Jamie with a horrified face, I believe it. I will cancel the surveillance of you at the police station right now. Aren't you going to catch the murderer? Jamie was already very dissatisfied with the sheriff, and seeing that he was almost frightened to the point of peeing, he could no longer hold back and immediately mocked him. The sheriff swallowed, not knowing how to answer. How could he catch the murderer? That's a terrifying evil spirit. Wouldn't it be like asking him to die if he was arrested? The sheriff smiled awkwardly, I will report this matter to the higher UPS. As for whether they will send someone down to arrest the murderer, that is not up to me to decide. I'm leaving first. After saying this, the sheriff crawled out of the room. Especially after seeing the Mary Shaw doll on the ground, he almost fell down and looked really embarrassed. But Jamie didn't laugh at him, instead he became a little worried. Mary Shaw's evil spirit is so terrifying, can they really solve it? Well, it's getting late. Let's take a night's rest. Tomorrow Jamie will take us to Mary Shaw's lair and take care of it once and for all. Roca stretched as if nothing had happened, then hugged Maria and Tina and left the room. Jamie couldn't help but smile bitterly when he saw this. He was worried about whether he could deal with Mary Shaw, but now it seems that he was thinking too much. Recalling the scene where Mr. Roca dealt with Mary Shaw just now, he felt a deep admiration in his heart. Without thinking too much, he turned around and went to rest. The only thing that surprised him was that when such a thing happened on their side, his father Edward and Ella did not make any move. But he didn't think much about it. Chapter 45. The next day, Jamie drove Roca and the other two to the cemetery in the town of Ravensfield. According to my father, after Mary Shaw died, the dolls were buried in Mary Shaw's grave. Are you sure you're really in the cemetery? Then how do you explain the several Mary Shaw dolls that appeared in front of us? Jamie, who was carrying a shovel and preparing to dig up Mary Shaw's secret, was stunned when he heard this. Yes, if Mary Shaw's dolls are buried in the cemetery, then what about the dolls they saw? Seeing Jamie standing there in a daze, Tina couldn't help but say, how stupid. Mary Shaw has become an evil spirit, so her doll must have been dug out by her, so it's only natural that it's not in the cemetery. Perhaps. Jamie frowned and felt that there was some truth in it, but he was still unwilling to give in, so he picked up a shovel and started digging Mary Shaw's grave. Roca and the other two didn't say anything when they saw this, they just watched him dig the grave. After a moment, Jamie finally dug up Mary Shaw's grave. Sure enough, there was nothing in the coffin. Jamie was completely desperate now. There is another place. If Mary Shaw's doll is not here, it must be there. Jamie drove out again with Roca and the other two. Soon they came to an abandoned opera house. From the outside, the opera house looked dilapidated, everything around it seemed so decayed, and there was no sound at all. It gives people a weird feeling. It is said that this is where Mary Shaw performed when she was alive. If those puppets were really dug out by Mary Shaw's evil spirit, then the most likely place to put them is here. Jamie said as he pushed open the door of the dilapidated opera house. Crunch! A lot of dust fell down with a teeth-aching sound, making Jamie look a little embarrassed. I think we should go slower. Tina looked at Jamie in front of her with a gloating look, and her pace slowed down a bit. Roca and Maria naturally had no objection. Jamie felt a little helpless when he saw this, but since he was the one who came here, he naturally couldn't back down. Coming to the main hall of the opera house, there is a huge stage that can accommodate thousands of people. It's just that everything here seems so corrupt. Tables, chairs, and benches would turn into powder with the slightest touch. It seems as if it has been abandoned for hundreds of years instead of decades. Henry told me that Mary Shaw was once a famous puppeteer in the opera house, and the puppet she used was named Billy. At that time, people didn't know about ventriloquism, so they all thought that Mary Shaw was talking to the puppet Billy. They also thought that it was Mary Shaw who gave the puppet a soul. Everyone liked this performance very much. While Jamie was looking for the possible hiding place of Mary Shaw, he introduced Mary Shaw's past to Roca and others behind him. Simply put, Mary Shaw is a very talented puppeteer. But one day when I was performing, I was questioned by a little kid. The child's name is Mike Anson. Then Mike Anson disappeared. The angry townspeople found Mary Shaw and asked about Mike's whereabouts. Mary Shaw refused to speak, so the townspeople caught her, cut off her tongue, and killed her. So was Mike kidnapped by Mary Shaw? Hearing this, Tina asked with some confusion. Jamie shook his head. I don't know. Tina was a little disappointed when she heard this. Maybe there are clues in there. Roca narrowed his eyes and smiled. He remembered that it was indeed Mary Shaw who kidnapped Mike because Mike questioned her puppet show and the puppet Billy. To Mary Shaw, the doll is her child, and she does not allow anyone to question it. So the townspeople didn't kill the wrong person. And if he remembered correctly, Mike was Jamie's biological brother. That's why Mary Shaw found Jamie many years later and killed his wife Lisa. Led by Jamie, several people came to the room where Mary Shaw used to live. It is said that this is where Mary Shaw made and stored her dolls. Did you hear any noise? When Maria first came into the room, she was a little scared, so she kept holding Roca's arm. What's that sound? Tina was a little confused. It's not scary here except that it's dark, really? Then don't get scared later. Roca chuckled. How could it possibly scare me? Tina looked unconcerned. Then pull down the red cloth over there and take a look. Roca pointed to the locker behind her that was covered with a red cloth. Tina turned around and found that there was indeed a place covered by red cloth. This strange scene made her feel a little uneasy. But when she thought of Roca right behind her, she still plucked up the courage to step forward and pull the red cloth aside. Next second, a huge glass locker appeared in front of everyone. In the glass storage cabinet, the dolls are neatly arranged one after another. It looks quite weird and scary. Tina was startled and quickly shrank towards Roca. Roca found it very funny. Jamie was also startled. Mary Shaw's doll is here, but what about this one? Jamie looked at something that was also covered with a red cloth. He swallowed and then walked forward to lift the red cloth. Then another puppet appeared. But this doll looks different from the one on the locker. Jamie took a closer look and was immediately shocked to find that the doll in front of him was actually made of a human body. Chapter 46. It was at this time. All the puppets' heads turned in the same direction. Several people followed the puppet's gaze. There was a clown puppet sitting there staring at them. Except for Roca, Tina, and the others were all shocked. This clown doll is so scary and weird, with strange patterns on its body and face, plus those empty eyes, who wouldn't be creepy when seeing it? It's especially scary in such a dim environment. Gaga, the clown puppet makes a terrifying sound, which makes people shudder. Mary Shaw, what do you want to do? After Jamie calmed down a little, he asked the question he wanted to ask most. He really didn't know what this evil spirit wanted to do. Was it going to kill everyone? The clown puppet said, let those who make me quiet down, all be quiet. So you killed Mike Anson? Jamie asked again. It is so difficult to make a perfect puppet. Ordinary puppets simply cannot make a perfect puppet on their own. Hearing this answer, everyone shuddered. He's just crazy. Tina cursed. In order to make a perfect doll, a child was killed. The purpose was to make a perfect doll with the body of a human child. Anyone who could think of such a thing is simply a lunatic. The clown puppet said again, you are not the last person in the Anson family, the child in Lisa's belly is. Jamie was shocked when he heard this, and there was some disbelief in his eyes. When he thought about Lisa being pregnant with his child but being killed by Mary Shaw, he almost collapsed. Why, Jamie fell to the ground and cried bitterly. I've already said that, in order to make those who told me to shut up shut up. The clown puppet said again. The meaning is simple, the townspeople killed her and pulled out her tongue. So after becoming an evil spirit, she also wants to take revenge on those who killed her. The baby in Jamie and Lisa's belly is the last one. After figuring it all out, Jamie clenched his fists in anger and turned to Roca and said, Mr. Roca, help me kill Mary Shaw. I am willing to pay any price for this. Roca couldn't help but roll his eyes after hearing this. Just pay the commission this time. Dealing with evil spirits is my job. Well, Mary Shaw, your end is here. As soon as he finished speaking, a desert eagle appeared in Roca's hand, and he attached the hellfire to the bullet. Bump! A bullet hit the clown puppet's head. Then the flames of hell enveloped it. Amid the shrill screams, the clown doll was burned to ashes. But that's not all. The puppets in the surrounding lockers and those puppets made from human bodies all began to move, including the human flesh made from Mary Shaw's own body. Then the puppets broke through the locker glass and rushed towards everyone. For a moment, the whole room was in chaos. Tina and Maria were so scared that they just leaned against him. Even Jamie lay on the ground and didn't dare to move. Seeing this, Roca sneered and then actually took out a Gatling gun. After the hellfire attached to the Gatling gun, a skull pattern appeared on the Gatling gun, as if it had turned into the Gatling gun of death. Cool. The flames of hell seemed to give the weapons a soul, causing Gatling guns and Ghost Riders' motorcycles to change, which was really cool. Roca grinned and then pulled the trigger. The next second, countless bullets formed a metal storm and swept towards the puppets. Wherever the bullets passed, the dolls were set on fire by the flames of hell. In just a moment, all the flying puppets were reduced to ashes, but the room was also completely set on fire. Let's go. Roca put away the Gatling gun in a cool manner, then took Maria and Tina and left the room. Seeing this, Jamie crawled over and followed. Wait until the four people leave the old opera house. The entire opera house was set on fire and engulfed in flames. Jamie looked at the burning opera house and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Mary Shaw should have been eliminated by now. Roca smiled and nodded. Indeed, all the puppets in the opera house have been destroyed, but... But what? Jamie was a little confused. But who told you that Mary Shaw was killed completely? What? Mary Shaw is not dead yet. Now not only Jamie, but also Tina and Maria were a little surprised. After all, they had just killed so many of Mary Shaw's puppets, how could Mary Shaw still be alive? Roca couldn't help but roll his eyes. Didn't I tell you that if you want to destroy Mary Shaw, you have to destroy all of her puppets? You mean Mary Shaw has another doll hidden? Jamie suddenly realized, and his face looked a little unhappy. If Mary Shaw really hid all the remaining dolls, where could they find them? Doesn't this mean that it will never be possible to kill Mary Shaw? Don't worry, I actually already know where Mary Shaw's last doll is. Roca said with a confident look and a smile. Where? Jamie was a little surprised after hearing this. Let's go back first. Roca said to him meaningfully. Jamie was a little confused, but he still drove them back home. Mr. Roca, can you tell me now where the last doll of Mary Shaw is? As soon as he got home, Jamie couldn't wait to ask. Maybe you should go see your father. Roca looked at him with pity in his eyes. This guy may not know that the person he saw when he just came back was his dead father. Chapter 47. Jamie looked a little strange after hearing this. He recalled everything about his meeting with his father and found it indeed a little strange. So he turned and ran towards his father's room. Could it be that Jamie's father was also made into a puppet by Mary Shaw? Tina asked with some doubt. So Jamie's father is Mary Shaw's last puppet. Maria made a bold guess. Haha, just go and take a look and you'll know. Roca smiled and didn't spoil the story. Several people followed Jamie to his father's room. By this time Jamie had already noticed that something was wrong with his father. When he came behind his father, he suddenly found that there was a huge gash on his father Edward's back. The internal organs have been dug out, leaving only the wooden device used to control the puppet. Needless to say, Jamie already knew what was going on. It turns out that his father was made into a puppet from the beginning, so what about Ella, the third wife who claimed to be married to his father? Jamie shuddered at the thought. Yes, your stepmother Ella should be Mary Shaw's last doll, and the perfect doll she has always dreamed of. In fact, I knew it the first time I saw her. Roca shrugged. Why did he wait until the end to solve the most perfect puppet, Ella? Of course they have to be captured alive. He didn't forget to add more collections to his monster shelter. Jamie took a deep breath after hearing this. Just as he guessed, Ella was Mary Shaw's last puppet. But she seems to be hiding. Jamie frowned, he didn't see Ella when he came back. Moreover, they killed so many of Mary Shaw's puppets, Mary Shaw would definitely know about it, so it was natural for her to hide. Look around. Roca was not in a hurry at all. With his super hearing, he had heard unusual noises in the mansion. If nothing unexpected happened, it should be Mary Shaw. So the four of them began searching in the mansion. After a moment. Sure enough, it was in a basement in the mansion. They successfully found Mary Shaw's last doll, Ella. How could you possibly find me? Mary Shaw was a little confused. She never expected that she would be discovered. Stop talking nonsense and prepare to die. Roca didn't waste any words, he just raised his hand and shot. The defenseless Mary Shaw was hit on the forehead on the spot. Then a shrill scream echoed throughout the underground chamber. It disappeared after a while. Okay, now all the evil spirits of Mary Shaw have been dealt with. Roca clapped his hands, looking relaxed. That's amazing, darling. Tina couldn't help but give him a kiss on the cheek. The same was true for Maria on the other side. She was deeply proud of the man she loved. Jamie looked at Ella lying on the ground, feeling confused for a moment. I will pay you double the reward, thank you Mr. Roca this time. Haha, it's only right to take money from others and help them get rid of their misfortunes. Roca smiled and patted Jamie on the shoulder. By the way, can you give me this doll? This is Mary Shaw's most perfect doll, and it is very valuable for collection. Sure, if Mr. Roca likes it, take it. Jamie was eager to get rid of the doll immediately, and now that Roca wanted it, he naturally would not refuse. Thank you very much. Roca said as he picked up the Ella doll and walked outside. After a moment. Are you leaving now, Mr. Roca? Why don't you stay for lunch? After Roca put the Ella doll into the trunk, he smiled and waved his hand, saying, No, since the commission has been completed, we should go back. Let's contact each other when we have time. Well, anyway, thank you Mr. Roca for this matter. Jamie thanked him again. He knew that Roca was a capable man and it would only benefit him to have a good relationship with such a man. After saying goodbye to Jamie, Roca and the other two drove away from the town of Ravensfield. In the car. Honey, what do you want with that doll? It's scary. Tina wanted to ask just now. Although Ella's doll is indeed perfect, it is almost indistinguishable from a real person. But it is a dead thing after all. It would be unlucky to bring it back. Do you have any special fetish, dear? Tina made a bold guess. Roca slapped her on the butt and said angrily, How dare you say I have a special fetish? I'll give you an enema when we get home. Ahem, just pretend I didn't say anything. Tina quickly shook her head to refuse, she didn't want to experience the feeling of enema. Honey, can you tell me why you brought that doll? Maria asked curiously. It's simple, because Mary Shaw is not dead yet. Scared hearing that Mary Shaw was not dead, the two women looked towards the trunk in shock. Don't look at her. Although she's not dead, she can't move without my permission. Roca smiled and drove calmly. But why? What Tina wanted to say was why Mary Shaw wasn't killed. Instead, he took her away? Did you forget what I told you about the monster asylum? Yes. Hearing this, Tina and Maria reacted immediately. It turns out that Roca took the Ella doll away because he wanted to keep it in the monster shelter as a collection. Chapter 48. But is this really okay? Maria was still a little worried. After all, Mary Shaw's ability was still very terrifying. It would be terrible if she ran away. No problem. Her soul has been wrapped in my hellfire. I only need a thought to burn her to death. The flames of hell are the nemesis of souls. What's more, Mary Shaw was wrapped in the flames of hell. Even if she was given 100 courages, she would not dare to move. Otherwise, you will be burned to ashes by the flames of hell. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission Dead Silence, rewards are being distributed. Congratulations to the host for obtaining superpower LV1, Monster Containment Device *100 Hey! The sudden system prompt in his mind made Roca stunned for a moment. After seeing the reward this time, he was even more surprised. Not to mention the super strength, in an instant he felt his own strength increase by more than 10 times. What surprised him even more was the monster containment device. Isn't this exactly what he was preparing to build a monster shelter for? This monster containment device is a very cutting-edge high-tech item and is safer than places like cabins in the woods where monsters are imprisoned. No matter what kind of monster it is, or whether it has the ability to pass through walls or space, once you are locked in, there is no way you can escape. This is simply like giving someone a pillow when they are sleepy. It seems that my monster containment plan can be started now. Roca raised the corners of his mouth slightly, then stepped on the accelerator, and the vehicle instantly rushed forward like a wild horse. The next day. After many days, they finally came back. My dear, I won't go back from now on. I will live here with you from now on. Now that she already knew that Roca had a mistress, Tina naturally couldn't let it go on like this. At least she had to join in. No problem. How about this? I'll let you use my Porsche to go to and from school. Anyway, that Porsche is just for showing off, you can just drive the Ford on a daily basis. But shouldn't he change his rental? His rental house is no problem for one person to live in, and it can also accommodate 2 people. It would be a bit crowded for 3 people. So the 3 of them moved in the afternoon. After being busy for a while, Roca remembered that Ella, also known as Mary Shaw, had not been dealt with yet. So he was busy for a while and finally brought Mary Shaw from the garage to the living room. Tina and Maria stood on his left and right, looking at the doll of Ella in front of them in amazement. It must be said that Ella is indeed a standard blonde beauty. And she doesn't look very old, which is quite pleasing to the eye. Of course, Roca has no interest in dolls. Mary Xiao, wake up! Roca removed the hellfire from Mary Shaw's soul and released her. Then the Ella doll opened its eyes. But when she saw him, Ella was frightened and wanted to run away. God knows what kind of torture she suffered while being wrapped in the flames of hell. Just being burned by the flames of hell was enough to drive her crazy. The burning pain in her soul made her shudder just thinking about it. Now, of all her dolls, only Ella is left. If Ella was destroyed again, she would be dead. Don't even think about running away. You should know that I can burn you in the flames of hell with just a thought. Roca simply removed the hellfire, which didn't mean that there was no hellfire in her body. As long as he wanted, he could burn it to ashes at any time. Mary Xiao was so frightened when she heard this that she dared not move. My dear, you are so amazing. You have subdued such a terrifying evil spirit. Tina couldn't help but kiss him on the face with admiration. The same goes for Maria. When will anyone be able to tame an evil spirit? It's only Roca. My dear, what are you going to do with her? Maria asked curiously. Roca stroked her soft hair and smiled. The shelter hasn't been built yet, and the facilities aren't very complete, so let her be a nanny here. But, isn't this too weird? Maria is still a little afraid of evil spirits. Let evil spirits be their babysitters? It might sound good, but the thought of living in the same room with evil spirits all day long makes me feel uncomfortable. What's the big deal? She can't hurt us anyway. Tina didn't have any concerns and even found it very interesting. Don't worry, ask her if she dares to hurt you or run away. Roca looked at Mary Xiao with a smile. No, I don't dare. Feeling threatened, Mary Xiao shook her head repeatedly. At this point, the identities of both parties have been reversed, and now Mary Xiao is the fish on the chopping board. If you don't obey, you will be tortured by the flames of hell. Look at this. Roca spread his hands toward Tina and Maria. All right. Seeing how well behaved Mary Xiao was, Maria had no choice but to agree. In fact, Alan had already called her a coward in his mind. Okay, Mary Xiao, no, I'll just call you Ella. From now on, you'll be our nanny. Cooking and cleaning will all be left to you. By the way, can you cook? Yes, yes. It's good to know how to cook. Learn the latest cooking methods, especially Sichuan and Cantonese cuisine. Roca has almost forgotten the taste of his hometown food and his mouth is watering just thinking about it. Mary Xiao could only nod repeatedly when she heard this, not daring to refuse at all. The torture of the hellfire was too horrible for her, and she absolutely did not want to try it again. Chapter 49. It's true that after Mary Xiao became a nanny, she was very dedicated and responsible, and was proficient in everything from washing clothes to cooking and cleaning. Keep the trivialities of their lives in order. Roca was also pleased with his original idea. Or perhaps it was because he had completed several commissions in a row, and even without much publicity, the exposure of the exorcism agency was getting higher and higher. I've only been at home for a few days. Another commission call came. Hello, this is the Superman Exorcist Agency. What is your request? My name is Jonathan, and my niece was kidnapped by a psychopathic murderer. Wow, perverted murderer, maybe you can call the police. Roca has become somewhat numb to murderers and the like. There are too many murderers in America, most of whom are mentally ill. And he had no interest in ordinary murderers. Of course, it would be okay if it was a ghost-type killer. If the police were helpful, I wouldn't have called you, and maybe I shouldn't have made this call. Jonathan was obviously very disappointed with this answer. In fact, he was completely at his wit's end, so he desperately sought help from the exorcist agency. Now it seems that he was really confused. Wait, don't hang up yet, tell me about your situation. I'll take the commission, but the commission will be very high. The commission is not a problem, as long as you can help me find my niece Allison and catch the murderer. No problem, you can tell me the details now. The situation is like this. Jonathan told the whole story. In fact, the situation was very simple. His niece Allison had to live with her uncle because her parents died unexpectedly. I just didn't expect that she disappeared after having a fight with him. Later he found his niece and a psychopathic murderer in an old house nearby. Originally he wanted to rescue. But he failed in the end, he was no match for the murderer. When he took the police to the house, no one was there. No problem, I'll take this commission. It's just a matter of finding the murderer and rescuing Allison. It's a very simple matter. So Roca agreed without thinking. Anyway, there is nothing to do these days except school. Ding! The system has updated the task Shadow of Death. Please deal with the murderer and rescue Allison. It's actually the Shadow of Death. Roca was somewhat surprised and excited at the same time, as he was very familiar with this work. Because the heroine in the movie is also Daddario, just like Heather. In fact, the quality of this film is quite poor. Both the story and the plot are very average, it can be called a bad movie. But Daddario's good looks saved the film's box office reputation. The heroine in the center, Allison, also known as Daddario, is so amazing in both appearance and figure. And although it's also Daddario, her temperament is completely different from Heather's. This made Roca a little excited. Where is the location? Number 245, XXXX town. Very good, it's not far, I'll be there in 2 hours. The destination was a remote town in the suburbs of New York, which was not far from where he was. Roca said and hung up the phone. After saying goodbye to Maria and Tina, he drove off in his Porsche. 2 hours later, Roca found Jonathan's house, and after confirming where Allison disappeared, he began to look for her. In fact, he is not good at finding people. But think about it, the murderer won't go far, and the police have already searched the area. So Roca went to the murderer's original house to search. I hope that guy can leave some clues. In fact, this place had already been searched by the police once, so Roca didn't hold out much hope. Enter the murderer's old house. He found many signs of rummaging, almost the entire house was turned upside down, including the basement. There is simply no place to hide. Seeing this, Roca couldn't help but shrug his shoulders, it seemed that he had come here for nothing. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly heard a faint scream. Kindness. Roca frowned. You know, he has super hearing and can hear everything clearly within a 1,000-meter radius. However, it is obvious that this faint sound is not within a 1,000-meter range. It doesn't matter, just follow the sound and find your way back. After a while he arrived at the hill behind the house. After searching for 2 kilometers from here, I finally arrived at the place where the sound was closest. But at first glance, this place looks deserted. It doesn't look like a place where people can hide. That means it's underground. Roca began to search on the ground. Since there was sound coming out, it proved that there must be an entrance. As expected. Soon he found a door leading underground in a place covered by fallen leaves. Open the door. He walked in without hesitation. But after entering, he was blocked by an iron door. From here you can already hear the sobbing inside getting louder and louder. Chapter 50. Roca wasted no time and kicked out fiercely. The huge iron gate was instantly deformed by the kick and then flew out. The huge sound also attracted the attention of the people inside. The sobbing became more and more urgent. It was obvious that the other party also knew that someone came to rescue her. Surprise party, I've seen you. Roca walked into the basement so carelessly, looking completely unprepared. Then he came to the room where the sobbing sound came from. I saw a beautiful woman with a curvy figure wearing a white vest and jeans, her hands tied and hung up, and her mouth was strangled with a rag. The beauty was very surprised when she saw someone coming to save her. But her surprise didn't last long, as she saw the murderer who kidnapped her hiding behind the door and attacking her. Woo woo woo, the beauty could only use whimpering to remind him. But Roca strode in as if he had noticed nothing. The next second, a bloody axe slammed towards him. Roca didn't move, as if he didn't react at all, and let the axe fall on him. The beautiful woman who was hung up kept whimpering, but her eyes were full of despair. I originally thought that this handsome guy was here to save me. Now that's better. Not only did he fail to save her, but he also lost his own life. Is she really going to die here? When? A crisp sound made her look up subconsciously, and her eyes widened for a moment. The murderer's axe fell on the handsome guy's head, but he was not hurt at all. How is this possible? If you don't know, you might think it's a magic show. How is it possible for a person's head to be hit by an axe and yet remain unscathed? Don't worry, you must be Allison. I was commissioned by your uncle Jonathan to rescue you and bring this murderer back. Only then did Roca turn his gaze towards the murderer standing beside him. This guy looks like just an ordinary old man, nothing special about him. After hearing this, the murderer's face turned grim, and he grabbed the axe with both hands and chopped again. This time Roca didn't tolerate him. Just like an adult and a child, he reached out and took away the murderer's axe. Then he knocked off both his hands and feet. After doing all this, he ignored the murderer's painful cries. Roca threw the axe away and walked up to Allison with a smile. Sorry for the wait, beautiful lady. You know what, it's a different feeling for Allison to be hung up like this. Her curvy figure is perfectly displayed, which is really amazing. Woo-woo, Allison was so excited that she didn't expect that she was actually rescued. She almost couldn't imagine it. Oh, by the way, I'll put you down first. Roca said as he untied her bound hands, and then untied the cloth from her mouth. However, the next second, Allison collapsed weakly. Fortunately, Roca grabbed him in time and prevented him from falling. At the same time, I also got to experience Allison's plump figure firsthand, which was really great. Because she had been hung up for a long time, her blood circulation was blocked and she didn't have the strength to stand up for a while. But that's not a big deal. Thank you. Allison's eyes were red as she kept thanking him. Until now she still felt like she was dreaming. Just when she was about to give up in despair, she didn't expect a miracle to really happen. It was the man in front of me who saved me. For a moment, Allison was so moved that her eyes turned red. Don't get excited, can you still go? Roca asked, hugging her slender waist. Allison nodded. However, as soon as Roca let her go, she collapsed. It was obvious that her body was not as strong as her will. All right. Roca had no choice but to pick her up like a princess, then found a rope to tie up the murderer and dragged him on the ground. Fortunately, he is very strong, otherwise it would be really troublesome. After leaving the basement, Roca carried one and dragged the other towards the parking lot. A long trail of blood was left behind. Don't worry, we'll be home soon. Roca said softly after putting Allison in the passenger seat. Allison didn't say anything, but just looked at him with gratitude. She looked like she would agree without hesitation even if he made some excessive requests now. Roca smiled and then tied the killer to the back of the car. Then he drove away. After a moment, Jonathan's home. Oh Allison, you're finally back. When Allison's aunt, Jonathan's wife, saw Allison come back, she couldn't help but hug her for a long time with tears in her eyes to comfort her. When Allison returned home, she burst into tears, feeling aggrieved. Mr. Jonathan, this is the murderer who kidnapped Miss Allison. I'll leave it to you to deal with. Roca took Jonathan to the back of the car and let the murderer down. The murderer whose limbs were broken was naturally unable to move, but there was no fear on his face. Instead, he looked crazy. This is also normal. Those who become murderers are either crazy or mentally ill. In short, there is no normal person. Just as he finished speaking. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission Shadow of Death, rewards are being distributed. Congratulations to the host for superpower speed LV1 LV2 not bad. Although he did not gain any new abilities, Roca was very satisfied with the improvement in his speed. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you're notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.